TheRantCast. Yeah. All right. It's Thursday night. Welcome to the Rantcast. With your old pal Uncle Zargon, aka Kurgan, here on the Rantcast podcast, live on Twitch, not live on YouTube. Shout out to our 21 record-breaking 21 followers. Thank you for all your support. Hey, we started from humble beginnings. We spun off from HeroQuest fans and Strange Bus. Here we are. Unfortunately, though, my co-host, the Strange Bus, can't be with us. He's got a family emergency, so we wish him well. Hope everything works out. I don't know if he'll be able to stop in later or if we'll just miss him tonight, but yeah, we'd hope to do just a regular show tonight, so we'll just do what we can. So thank you all for joining us. Welcome to Bookem Dan 04. You got to say it out loud to get the joke. Welcome. And also Joe Kozier, I see you there. Thanks for joining us here on the Rantcast. Cheers, Dead Gamer. Shout out to Karl Casey at White Bat Audio on YouTube for the great music. And tonight, let me get rid of our screens here. So tonight, there's a lot of things we could have talked about. I was going to say, gee, there's nothing happening in the world of HeroQuest. What am I talking about? Of course, there's lots of things happening in the world of HeroQuest tonight. Just because we don't have a big announcement yet, because we're still waiting on the next big show, which is PulseCon. We'll get to all that shortly. So the title topic today is Disney dying? ? Now, of course, I'm not an expert in any way in the world of finances or marketing or anything like that. I don't have any special insider information, so I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, but is Disney dying is the question that's being asked on a lot of sources online, a lot of people in media commentating on that. And here's the reason why. A lot of people criticize Disney over the years. I mean, they're a big company. Got a lot of ownership of a lot of things. They got their fingers in a lot of pies. So, of course, they're a big target of criticism when stuff doesn't go according to plan. But this little bit of data, I'm just going to pull this up. This is just from the web. Disney stock, New York Stock Exchange, $80.57 a share today. What does that mean? Well, I've never looked at this before, so I'm just looking at this here for the first time, really. And it looks like their stock hasn't been this low in quite a while. I mean, you look back, I mean, this is like at the beginning of the pandemic, like how bad their stock was. And yeah, if you go back to like 2014, I mean, their stock was a lot lower than it is today. So it's not as if, you know, they're dying in that sense. I mean, just because your stock goes down doesn't mean your company is in bad shape, but it usually is a warning sign. So you can ask people who know more about that sort of thing, should we be worried? I don't own stock in the company, full disclosure, so I don't have any skin in the game. I mean, anytime a big company has issues, I mean, they employ a lot of people, so you could say that's bad news for them. At the same time, though, I mean, okay, yeah, working for Disney is probably a pretty unique thing, but you could work pretty much anywhere. I mean, oh, gee, I got fired by this giant company because they were letting everybody go. Well, you can get a job somewhere else. Now, if you're like an animator or a technology person, I mean, I'm sure there's lots of companies that would kill to have like the top talent from Disney at their company. So I have the feeling that they're going to be okay. And then you get, you know, the big CEOs and people like that. They always talk about the golden parachute. So I'm not concerned for them. Yeah, it's going to suck the worst for people they let go that are like at the bottom tier. But at the same time, I mean, they're good people. They work hard. I'm sure they can get jobs other places. So, I mean, it's too bad that they have to suffer for the mistakes that are made at the top. And then that's the question that's going around is who's to blame for this. Now, obviously, a big thing that's happening right now is the uh, Screen Actors Guild and Writers Guild of America strikes that are going on. So, but the question is, people, why are they striking? I mean, people aren't just striking for no reason. There's got to be some reason. So, usually when people go on strike, it's because they want higher wages. Why do they want higher wages? Because of the economy, or they're not getting paid enough, or whatever else. But yeah, I've seen a lot of the movies that have come out that they've made during COVID, and yeah, you can tell they suffer a lot in terms of the quality. Thanks, Bookham Dano. Yeah, if anybody wants to join us here on the Rantcast, I don't have a co-host right now, so when you see that Discord in the bottom of your screen, you can actually join us live, and we can actually talk if you want to talk. Have your voice heard. I'm not going to yell at you. It's not how this show works. I mean, we basically agree to be civil with one another, even if we're criticizing, some company out there for its decisions, or commenting on the entertainment news of the day. I mean, we're not really a gossip show or anything like that. Bookham Dano says they launched Disney Plus at the beginning of COVID. Yeah, it's true. The shiny new thing has worn out. It's welcome, if you will. Yeah, I remember that. A lot of the Disney Plus stuff, they were editing movies, they were censoring stuff, they were doing like sneaky digital like changes to stuff a lot of people didn't like, including Star Wars. One of those things, just weird stuff. And yeah, their shows haven't been that great. I mean, you think about Obi-Wan Kenobi and Andor and now Ahsoka. The people are criticizing for various reasons. I still haven't seen it, but they're saying, yeah, they're really overusing the people getting stabbed with lightsabers thing, and the special effects just don't seem as special. Some of the costuming issues that people are talking about. But yeah, okay. So back to your comment. Yeah, it's the bloom is off the rose when it comes to Disney Plus service. Then throw in the ongoing strike. I can see viable reasons for people wanting to spend their hard-earned money elsewhere. Ribby, welcome. Yeah, Jacer's here too. Hey, if you guys want to jump in, the water's fine here on episode 17 of the Rantcast. I don't have my co-host, so you're welcome to join in if you'd like. Just hop into the Discord, Quest Talk, on the HeroQuest fans Discord. Just got to get that link here. I'll post it in the chat for anybody who wants to not have to type it all out. I know you guys are already part of it. But yeah, is it Bob Chapek's fault? Is it Bob Iger's fault? I mean, who's, it's probably not just one thing, right? It's a big list of fails and problems. Because every company has suffered through COVID. Every company has had something go wrong or had to change their business model as a result. And yeah, people are saying, oh, it's because of AI and that's why the strike is going on. They're afraid that the company's going to try to save money and it's going to screw them over. There's a lot of things being talked about. Okay. Hold on here, guys. Yeah, thanks for that, Jacer. I appreciate that. That's some fiery hammers. I mean, when I was a kid, Disney was like the company of dreams. Like they could do no wrong. Everything just seemed amazing. And that's what it's supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about imagination and just innocence and all that stuff. Just good, clean family fun. And Disney's gotten so much bigger since then, and they have so much more to lose. But I think they've definitely rested on their laurels. They've kind of gotten full of themselves. So there's a lot of problems that they have in that direction that maybe they haven't made the best decisions in response to these crises. Some of it they brought on themselves, though, I feel like. So yeah, right now it's a solo show, but it doesn't have to stay that way. Hop into Quest Talk there. I just posted it in the chat if you want to join us. Staring into infinity. But yeah, so Disney, I mean, they're losing money right now. They're bleeding money. The question is, will the damage continue? What will the result of the strike be? I like I said, when it comes to, when I hear Disney, the first thing I think of is Disney Star Wars. Like I've pretty much written off like the Marvel cinematic universe. I don't really care about that stuff. I haven't cared in a long time. It just doesn't interest me. I love superheroes, but I'd rather just read comics, like old comics, rather than watch the new movies that come out. They just seem boring. They just seem like very formula, and there'll always be some like controversy in the media, but it's just some gossipy like tabloid thing. Like who cares? Like why should we care like the personal politics of some actor in a show or what's something some director said on Twitter or X, that they call it now. Like who cares about that? I care if the movie is entertaining. And not just entertaining and I've got nothing better to do on a Saturday night kind of entertaining and I'm going to pay $15 to watch the same thing that I could watch at home for much cheaper. Like I care in the sense that like it's actually something good. Like it's actually something I'm looking forward to. And they just haven't given me that in a long time. Like Hollywood in general. So it's not just Disney, but yeah, there just isn't much good out there to like rave about. And we had a recent spate of articles, people talking about Rotten Tomatoes and what a farce they are, and how they've been cheating for years with like paid reviews. And I think a lot of us kind of suspected that was going on, access media stuff. But it's just one more strike against the whole like facade that we have of entertainment. Like so many of us growing up, like we were in love with like movies and movie stars, and people on TV are so cool, and we just want to be like them, and we want to have what they have, and it becomes like this cult mentality. Like people read, you know, magazines because they want to know about the lifestyles of the rich and famous, and they want to find out, who who's dating who in the entertainment world, and it's like the more you discover about those individuals and then the business that they're in and the people that sign their checks and everything, the more shady the whole thing becomes, and it's more like politicians, and sometimes gangsters. Like they just don't seem as glamorous. Like you realize it's like they're putting on an act. The whole thing is an act. They're selling a product, and when you pull back the curtain, it's not like these are really brilliant, wonderful, amazing people that we should try to imitate. They're just creating a product. And it's just like anything else. There's good people, there's bad people, there's everything in between. But I think we worship celebrities and we worship these companies, unfortunately, based on how they've made us feel. Like I watch a good movie and I feel great, or I watch a good TV show and yeah, it was amazing. That really made me feel something. And it's like, but that doesn't mean that the people that made it care about me or my friends or my family, obviously. And you find out it's like, yeah, they're kind of just in it for themselves and they kind of couldn't care less as long as they're getting paid. And I realize, we've all got to make a living, but when it kind of just comes out that they've been lying to you to your face and trying to act like they're your moral betters, so to speak. I hate that term, but uh, it just kind of is just a wake up call to say, maybe I shouldn't put these people up on such a high pedestal. So Rotten Tomatoes, I mean, it's an aggregate site. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to read the individual reviews. I mean, who cares if a movie has like 45% or 85%? I mean, for a long time I only looked at the audience score, but even then it's like, what does that tell me? Just people that got on the site and voted said it was good. I mean, I voted for movies in the past for all the difference it would make, but that doesn't mean it's a good movie that's going to be worth your time. Like you don't know what those people's tastes are. And they always talk about those movies getting ratioed where it's like, 85% of critics thought it was, fresh, and then 45% of audiences thought it was, you know, it was rotten. But the whole system is messed up because, 3 out of 5 stars is considered good. It's like, really? So, but anyway, with all the
Kinda
stuff coming
average.
out, it's even more obvious. Hey, Jacer.
How you doing?
Hey, good to have you. Yeah, I was just kind of ranting. I mean, it is the rant cast after all. So Rotten Tomatoes, Are they a complete waste of time?
I don't even bother. Like, and I don't think I've ever voted on a movie or done
Yeah.
anything. So
Well, for
yeah,
me, yeah, for me it was IMDb. I used to be a big fan of like IMDb. I would always go there looking for information, and I would like post on there like a lot. I'd have discussions with people about movies, but I guess I wasn't under any illusion that it actually was a measure of quality, because it's like, okay, how many people see a movie? I don't know, some big number. And then a really, really small number of those people actually go online and decide to express their opinion in that spot. And you think it's going to skew towards the people that really hated it and really want to rant about it, or the people that really loved it and really want to like praise it. So everybody else in between just kind of drops off. But then, yeah, you get Rotten
yeah,
Tomatoes, and I think at one time I wanted to be a movie critic, and I had this goal. It was like, okay, I got to get 200 published reviews, and I can become a critic, and I'll be on there, and I'll be part of the percentage. But I gave that up long ago, not because I couldn't do it. I mean, you look at the content I put out. I mean, it's possible to do that, and it's not that hard. It's just time. But yeah, it's just it doesn't mean anything. It's just advertising.
right now it would be better for you just to be like a YouTube video critic or the watch party and all the other stuff that they do now. So
Yeah. Yeah, well, and a lot of people, I feel like, as critics, the process of them criticizing stuff is entertainment in and of itself. Like, I don't really care what Red Letter Media thinks about a movie. I would watch them because I'm entertained by the fact that they act goofy and make me laugh about a movie that I haven't seen. Like, that's what that is. Or I don't know. I enjoy Film Threat. Um, a lot of times though, they're just making fun of a movie that they agree is a waste of time, but like I may never see that movie regardless of what they said, whether they liked it or not. I think I'm more likely to watch a movie if somebody who seems like they're just an average everyday person, like I know their tastes, and they say why they like the movie, and that may influence me to give it a shot. But I definitely go with personal recommendations, because I got lots of friends and family that have totally different tastes than me, but then I have people that it's like, okay, they like action movies, they see a lot of action movies, and they say this particular action movie is good because X. And I'll go, okay, I'll go check it out. But I'm usually not the one to rush out and see it first. Like, there's very few movies anymore where I'll do that. I don't know. Are there any that
yeah,
you're looking forward to, or how do you
no,
decide?
I haven't even. I think the last movie that I actually seen come out or whatever was with my family, and I think we ended up doing the in-home thing, and that was
Sure.
or maybe it was part of Disney Plus or something, but it was the Encanto thing
Oh yeah.
because they wanted to see that when that came out, and before that it was Frozen 2, I think.
This sounds
You know what I
familiar.
mean? So like
I've
it,
yeah, I've
yeah,
got
it's not exactly
young
that
family
thing,
members
but the
who
last
like
couple
it.
movies that I think that we liked that came out were like the Cruise, the animated one there, and well, I guess they got a couple of them now. And then it was like the Despicable Me and the Minion things, and none of
Yeah.
I don't think any that's Disney. I think that's
Yeah.
Universal.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know what I mean? I
and,
think,
and it's different
and
if
even
you
then
have
with the
kids in your family. Yeah, I've got nieces and nephews, and it's like when that stuff comes out, usually, yeah, sooner or later it comes down the pipe. But I mean, they don't invite me to that stuff.
like,
And
the next movie like I'm looking forward to them saying we want to watch is the Super Mario one. So like, and I don't know if it's going to be like
oh yeah,
if they're just going to buy the Blu-ray or if we're just going to wait for it to come out on
yeah.
something and watch it.
In
You know what I mean? So
in
yeah, it's
principle,
just
I
we
was
just wait.
against.
And,
Yeah, in principle, I was against the Super Mario movie. The same reason the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Like, it's so far removed from what I liked about those franchises originally, which were the games, the video games. But I've heard good things about both. I mean, people that normally don't like that stuff have said they like it, and it's like, okay, well, maybe I should catch it. But yeah, I didn't rush out to theaters to get it. You didn't either, and
no,
I don't need Disney Plus to watch that stuff. And I'm not talking about pirating the stuff either. I mean, I was telling Strange Bus this the
yeah,
other day. I just go to my local library and get movies for free. It's like, okay, my taxes are already paying for this stuff, right? And I don't mind if it's a DVD and not a Blu-ray. Like, why is it being higher quality? Like, I save that for the movies that are really like I want an archival like copy, even though Blu-rays don't last, that long. But just having something in higher quality. Minions, yeah, I never saw that. I saw Despicable Me like many, 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 like I don't know, like a decade after it came
Oh,
out.
it came out like 10 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw it like fairly recently. I want to say like maybe a year and a half ago, and that was only because
Right, and it's my 5-year-old nephew. It's his favorite movie.
sure,
So
sure,
like, right, it's like, all right, I'm watching you. What do you want to do?
yeah.
Minions.
Well,
Okay.
sure. I mean, there's stuff.
You know what I mean? So I think I've seen the whole movie by
Oh
now.
no, I
Because
get.
I've seen the beginning,
Hold
I've
on,
seen the
just
middle, I've seen, you know what I mean? You
I
catch so much of it, and you're like,
Jacer,
all right.
I
And
I
then
caught myself again. I
I
caught
think it's
myself again.
more fun.
I get.
I
I
think
get.
it's more fun trying to piece the movie together in your mind because you're seeing bits and pieces
Oh
of
yeah.
it.
No,
And then
I
when
get
you
that.
go and watch the whole thing, you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. You know, like I like how it all worked together or whatever.
I caught myself. I get Megamind and Despicable Me confused. So I think Megamind is actually one I'm thinking of. Despicable Me I've never seen. So I've never seen any of the Minions movies. I mean, I guess they both have it in common that they're about like a supervillain or a bad guy that has people that work for him, but otherwise, and it's animated. Otherwise, it's a totally different production. Um, but yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, obviously, I loved like stupid shows and I loved annoying cartoons that my parents couldn't stand. But there's some entertainment, and it's not just nostalgia. Like I'll rewatch stuff that I liked as a kid, and it's like this is trash. This is garbage. This was just a waste of time. But my tastes were different as a child. Other stuff, it's like this is still like good, at some level. And so some things like yeah, I'll watch it with my niece or nephew and go, yeah, this is pretty entertaining, or wow, this is stupid, but because you like it, I'll sit and watch it with you, just because we're sharing time together, even though we're watching something that have different opinions about. There's stuff that I want to show um, my nieces and nephews from when I was a kid, but I'm like looking at it now, I'm thinking, I don't know. This has some kind of like scary, edgy stuff in it. I'm not sure if it'll be received the same. And some of it was problematic
Yeah,
at the time too.
okay. Like my kids were okay with Labyrinth, but they did not like Dark Crystal at all.
Oh
And they
man,
did not like the Dark Crystal remake was
Dark
super
Crystal,
scary for them.
Dark Crystal's scary
Yeah, but I
for,
didn't.
but I loved that. I didn't like Labyrinth as much, but then again, I didn't see Labyrinth until I was like in high school. It's like, okay, why is so much attention being focused on David Bowie's crotch there? It's like you have a different perspective on those films. I mean, yeah, it had some imaginative puppetry, but definitely the Dark Crystal was all puppetry. So it was and suitmation or whatever. So it was much more impressive
Right, and
in that area. I heard the sequel wasn't too bad though, even though it was it CGI or did they use practical effects again? I can't imagine that they did.
honestly, I'm not sure. I think we got halfway through the first episode, and the kids started screaming, and that was the end of
New
that. And
show. Yeah, it's kind of
so,
like
so yeah, new show. Oh, actually, that's
Fraggle
another.
Rock if it was
A good show was
crack.
well, Troll Slayer, I think.
Troll Slayer.
Is that or no?
Troll Hunter.
Is it Troll Hunter? Yes, that
That's
one
a
was
movie.
good. That
That's a
show.
movie I've been told that I need to watch, and it was one of those ones that I just kind of like wrote it off, thinking, oh, it's just schlock. But I like schlock. It's just that it has to be the right kind of schlock, I guess.
Well,
Have
my
an
kids liked
imaginative.
it, and I didn't mind watching it. And I was like, all right. So we watched like an episode or even two, I think, every not almost every night for like a month or something. Because I want to say it was a couple seasons, but then there's movies. Or there's movies and there's shows, and then there's something else with some aliens, and I don't know. It got a lot involved, but I think it's like three different shows, and then there was another show, and then there was a movie, and I was like, all right.
There's too
And
much media.
well,
Uh,
it was. I guess it's okay because there is a lot, but it's like
well,
you
I
don't have to know it all, I guess.
well that
But I
helps.
don't know. It was a little confusing for me, but the kids loved it, and I didn't mind it, and I don't know. I didn't
Didn't
think the
mind.
ending was super great, but other people loved the ending, or maybe
Yeah.
they don't like the ending.
Well, it's kind of like when I was a kid, my parents would read me like, yeah, just the throwaway entertainment from the library. We'd read comic books together, but they'd also show me, great literature. It's like some of it you're like, okay, whatever, and other stuff it's like, wow, this is really really good, and it's like, oh yeah, this has been popular for hundreds of years. Oh, okay, no wonder. So it's like you try to introduce them to stuff that you think is good. So Bookham Dano says the show I loved as a kid teen was MacGyver. I stumbled across the DVDs for a couple seasons and bought it for cheap. Big regret, it was just bad. I haven't watched MacGyver since it was on TV. I remember liking it, but I guess I don't know how I would react to it now. The thing is with those type of shows, like binge watching was not a thing. I mean, yes, they did occasionally have marathons of like different movies or whatever, like usually late at night when like you're barely awake anyway, you're barely paying attention. But like binge watching, I think well, first of all, it's really unhealthy, and I think with some of that stuff, if you watch it back to back, it feels a lot worse, a lot cheaper. Like you can see the recycled plots, and the stuff is just very formulaic. Like I noticed that trying to watch the Back to the Future movies, like too close together. I was like, gee, it feels like they're just kind of retelling the same story over and over. Like it's totally different if you see it years apart or even like weeks or months apart. And with a TV show, it's like, okay, a week goes by, you look forward to your favorite show, you watch it. I mean, it's kind of like an event. You get your
We,
popcorn or you come home from school and it's like,
we used to watch it every Thanksgiving. We used
there
to
you go.
rent it for the 4 days because you got the extra day for free because they were closed.
Oh,
So we
nice.
would always rent on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving because they were closed on Thanksgiving, and then they were closed on Friday. So the local
Sorry. Remind me which
A to
one,
Z video,
which one was, or which title are you talking about for this?
Back to the
Oh,
Future.
the first Back to the Future.
We would rent all
Oh, the
three of them,
trilogy.
and we would watch them over we would watch
Oh,
them
yeah.
over like one each day for Thanksgiving.
See, I hadn't done that. I hadn't done that before. I think I'd seen the first one, like I watched it once in the theater, and I think it came back to theaters and I saw it again, and then I just didn't see it for many, many like decades. Back to the Future Part 3, I saw it on TV and I was like, wow, this is actually like really good. Like I like this better than the first movie. Like that was my impression at the time. Now I don't know if it's really better, but I really enjoyed it. Back to the Future Part 2 was the one I always wanted to see because I saw like this making of thing they had on TV. And of course, it was all about the hoverboards and the flying cars. And when I finally watched it, I was like, this is kind of disappointing. Like, that's only a tiny part of the movie. And it really wasn't that
Yeah,
good. And I watched
yeah.
people online who were like ripping it. And it's like, yeah, they were pretty much right. I mean, it was a lot of hype at the time. I think if I had gotten the opportunity to see it in theaters as a kid, I would have just been over the moon about it. But yeah, as a movie, looking back, it just isn't that good. So when I watched the three of them together, it was just kind of like the first one had like 100% of the content. The second movie had like maybe 80%, and then the third movie had, I don't know, 70%. But the stuff that was new in the third movie I liked better than the stuff that was new in the second movie because it was just kind of
Plus, they
flashy.
spent more time in the past than they spent in the
Yeah,
actual
yeah.
future.
It almost didn't have to be a time travel movie in some ways. I mean, yes, the beginning and the end don't make any sense if it's not a time travel movie, but yeah, it could have been just a western like Marty McFly is just from the big city coming to the country or something. I mean, it could have been something like that. But the characters were likable, the action scenes were good, the jokes were funny. It worked. So I guess I'm kind of
That
weird
is
that
it.
way, but yeah, I've rewatched. I think Back to the
And then
Future
they had
came
a
back to theaters
cartoon
again.
with
Oh, never saw that.
Back to the Future. Yeah, there's I don't know how long the show ran, but there was a show, and it was
Like
Doc and the kids and the teacher
well, I know
and the
that
train and time traveling.
Rick and Morty was a spoof, kind of inspired by that, and then went off in its own direction. But was this Back to the Future cartoon like was this like from back in the day or was it more recent? Because we're talking about like the late
Like,
'80s.
Probably the late '80s or early '90s. It
Huh.
was after the third movie
I totally missed it.
because it all takes place with
Well,
the train.
I probably wasn't watching
It,
much Saturday morning cartoons
yeah,
back then.
I guess it would be like a cross between Rick and Morty and like the animated Magic School Bus.
Magic School Bus. I kind of remember that one a little bit. I think I was a little after my time. I remember the Teen Wolf cartoon. Like, oh yeah, so going back to binge watching. So Saturday morning cartoons, that was the binge watching for kids. Like, I don't know how when I
That
what time I
right,
got
that
done, but
or
like 2
the
hours of solid cartoons and commercials, toy commercials. And it's like and sugary cereal. And like after that, the rest of the week, nothing until maybe one show after school like once a week. Like Star
see we
Trek. I was watching Star Trek.
we would watch TV till like roughly 5 o'clock or so because that's when my mom would get home. So from after school till she got home, we were watching afternoon cartoons,
Oh wow. See,
and
we didn't
that
do
was
the
that was like all the Disney cartoons that would run.
yeah. Well,
Anything from like the Gummy Bears up to
oh
like
the
I don't
gummy
know Darkwing Duck
the
and
Disney
all of those.
afternoon. I remember the
The,
Disney
yes,
afternoon. Yeah, there was a certain
so
age.
that's what we would do, right? So
Yeah,
we would watch that till like 5 o'clock, and then
yeah.
um, it was usually dinner, and then after dinner it would be Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy would come on, and then once a week, I'd say, and then around 91 or 92 or something, it would I would one day a week I got to pick something. One day my sister got to pick
Ah,
something. One day my
nice.
little brother got to pick something. So I would pick The Simpsons.
The
So that was
Simpsons.
my show that I got to pick.
Ah, so you had a special
So
relationship.
that's what we would watch
Well,
at that one night a week. And that was well, I think it was Sunday. Right? So is it Sunday? I think it was Sunday night was the new episode at like 8 o'clock or something. So yeah,
see,
that
I
was
never,
my
never,
half an hour show or whatever.
yeah, I never watched The Simpsons regularly. I think I maybe saw like 2 or 3 episodes the whole time I was living at home. And I remember being in at college, and there would be you'd be like hanging out with some people, and they'd just be talking. They go, "Oh, gotta go, Simpsons is on," and they'd like just abruptly leave. You're like, okay, and
Yeah,
then
yeah. I
and
don't
then
think
that
it was.
changed, and it was
I
like
didn't watch that late in.
it
Yeah,
used to be The Simpsons, and then it would change to something else, like, "Oh, South Park is on, gotta go," and like they leave, or "Oh, Family Guy's on, gotta go." Like, like what are you talking about? But people had their shows, and it's like, but when I was living at home, yeah, for sure at first, like we were one of those families, like we didn't have a TV, and then we finally got one. It was this little black and white thing that you had to hold on a like it had a little handle so you could carry it around. We weren't really supposed to, but as a kid, I actually broke one of our TVs because I was trying to carry it around while it was plugged in. Don't ask me what I was thinking. I was a kid, but yeah, I would always try to watch Scooby Doo, and I think I don't know. At some point, it was just like, nah, I'm not gonna watch this anymore. Um, but yeah, it was Star Trek. And then there was a show, I'm trying to think what year it would have been. Probably late 80s, early 90s. But it was the
well,
Disney
I
Sunday
think
movie.
in '87 we got a color TV,
Yeah,
so that was the upgrade.
I think yeah,
And
we
I think
that was a
that was
big deal.
1987. Yeah, oh, it was a
That's
big
really
deal.
cool.
And the
Yeah.
black and white, the little 13-inch black and white TV went into my parents' bedroom, and we had like a 19-inch color TV that went in the living room.
Yeah. Well,
And yeah,
eventually,
that was a pretty big deal.
yeah, eventually we got a big color TV. I think we back then you could rent TVs, and so we I think we rented a color TV for the Olympics, the Olympic Games. So that would have been what 88 probably. So sometime after that, yeah,
Yeah,
eventually we did get it, and it was like the Disney Sunday movie and then the Disney Summer Special were like
yeah,
stuff that we tried to watch. So it was like a family event, and it wasn't always good, but a lot of those shows were kind of fun. And I've since looked them up, and it's like some of them were just super cheesy. Like there was one where like these kids like run into Bigfoot and they think that the family thinks that Bigfoot like kidnapped them. It's like the husband and wife are getting divorced, and then it turns out that they were friendly. And there's stuff about like aliens and like chimpanzees, and they were weird, but I mean they were fun too. And it was like again this idea of Disney as like this inner imagination factory that was family friendly. And I want to say they had I think it was
One
Michael
of my
Eisner.
favorites was
Tell me if you're
Bed Knobs and Broomsticks.
Bedknobs and Broomsticks is a great movie, but I just want to ask you this one question. Do you remember Michael Eisner getting on and he would like talk about stuff like before the? I think that was the Disney Sunday movie. They
He,
did that.
right, he would sit in a chair. Was it a big tall chair or something, or is that
Well,
somebody else?
I maybe it was somebody else because there were a lot of shows that did that. But Michael Eisner, he'd be like, "Hey, I'm Michael
Okay.
Eisner," and he'd be in a suit and he'd be walking around, and usually he'd like talk to some characters and he'd have some props from the movie, and he'd just be talking
Yes,
about it.
I do remember that.
Yeah, and it was just like, oh, he's this really cool guy. Of course, now people are like, oh, what a jerk. This guy like only cared about money and stuff. But it's like he was like the face of Disney. I mean, Walt Disney himself had this kind of persona that he would project to the media, which was like, this man is like magical and he has all these ideas and he just wants people to be full of love and joy. And Michael Eisner kind of did the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just showing you this magical wonderland of like entertainment. And so that was, and then you'd watch whatever the show was. So it was definitely promoting the company. But yeah, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, that was Angela Lansbury, and I forget the guy's name. But they're like the two, they were like witches. They were like amateur magicians. And they had like that book, and
Yeah.
like each of them, the man and the woman,
Yes,
they each had half the book, and they were trying to put it together to get like more powers. And there were kids that, but it was from the 60s,
yeah,
I think.
and the kid, right, and the kid was the one that kind of had everything. He had the bed knob, and
Yeah, the magical bed
he
knob.
had the kid's book with the map or something on it. Or
Well, and that's back when Disney movies always ended with a battle of some kind. And I think it was they weren't they fighting the Nazis and they were like magical knights or something that were like floating around because they had a
they
magic
brought the
spell.
suits of armor to life.
Yeah, the suits of armor.
Yeah, they had their own
Wow.
Chaos Warrior army.
I haven't watched that in so long. If I watched it now, I don't know what I would think of it. There was a section in it similar to Mary Poppins where they had the animation blended with the live action.
Yes, on the island.
The
Yes,
island of
with the
Naboombu.
soccer game.
They had some
Yes,
magical talisman or amulet that would like summon those characters that let you visit a magical land. Or yeah, it was
yeah.
so it
Or
was very entertaining for kids who preferred
well, that
animation
right.
to
That was
live
the
action.
whatever it was. Yeah, it was great.
Chitty Chitty Bang
Like
Bang,
I said,
yeah,
the soccer game with all the animals, and
soccer game.
it reminded me so much of like Robin Hood because I love that animated
Oh
show,
yeah, with the
like
animals.
Disney cartoon. With all right, so them fighting in
See,
the thing after the archery match or whatever, and they're running around chasing
yeah,
each other, and it's like the same thing over and over again with them going back, but they're chasing a soccer ball. You know what I mean?
yeah, or like
So like
Disney,
it might have been
uh,
recycled
Disney's
images,
Alice in
and it was
Wonderland.
probably the same images they used in like Fantasia. You know what I mean? But it's somebody else tracing over it or whatever, another car, and
Oh,
here it is.
they
But
actually reused.
that's the way they do all that.
Yeah,
They might have, like, if you're looking at like a lot of them, but they reused a lot of the stuff, but they also lost a lot of stuff because they threw a lot of stuff away when it was done.
that's true. Well, see, this is back when, I mean, Disney was making very memorable things and they were keeping it out there. Yeah, because everybody thinks of like Pinocchio and Dumbo and Cinderella and Snow White and Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty was my favorite out of those. But yeah, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. So you had the flying car and that ended with a big
That was
battle.
that was good.
Wasn't it like it was like that oppressive state and like everybody's fighting at the end? So I never saw the Apple Dumpling Gang. There was one Disney. So when you rented a Disney movie on VHS, which was a big deal to finally get to that stage, because we finally got a VCR, it was like, wow, you can actually rent movies. Um, uh, there would be this long commercial either at the beginning or at the end of the feature where they had like all the Disney stuff that they were trying to get you to buy or to watch. And yeah, the Apple Dumpling Gang was on there, even though I never saw it. The Watcher in the Woods, I always wanted to see that because it was like the one scary thing that they would promote, but I've still never seen it. And I guess they made a sequel to it, and I can't remember if it was about ghosts or psychics or I'm sure it wasn't very good because it's just one of those things like you'd never even know it existed unless you saw like Disney advertising it to you. Did you ever see The Watcher in the Woods?
I don't think so.
It was always this girl, like she is blindfolded, and they're like, "What did you see?" And she's like, "Ah!" And there's like, I don't remember if there was like blood on her
No,
hands or something. It's
I,
like it looked like Carrie or
nope.
something like
I've
that.
never seen it.
The Watcher in the
I've
Woods.
seen Carrie.
Yeah, so have I. Obviously, much later and much more out there. But yeah,
I've seen like
Disney
Hocus
had.
Pocus. I think I saw that, and I saw the new one that they made.
Yeah, I never bothered.
I don't know
Hocus
if that,
Pocus is really dumb and really bad, but it's like in a good way. That's one of those movies that I can see why it's a cult film because it definitely like reels you in, and everybody that's in it looks like they're having a good time, so it works. Yeah, I
yeah, I
especially
think
like the
it
part
was a
where
year
the
or two or something. We watched it. We
yeah
watched the one, and then
like
we watched the other one. But that's another one I think we watched one time. You know, it was like my wife was like, "Oh, I remember Hocus Pocus." I was like, "Yeah, I remember it too, a little bit." And we
yeah
watched it, and then the kids are crying and stuff, and then we're like, "Why are you crying?" And we're like, "They thought the cat was dead or something."
yeah the cat gets like crushed by
And
the car. It's like
I was like, all right, and then it
bring
like
to
turned
life.
right, and then it's like okay, or it turns back into the boy or something, and I'm like, see, look, everything's fine.
Yeah, but still they had to go
And I
through
was
the
like, I
trauma
don't
of
know,
having it's like rib cage crushed.
right? And that's all they're saying is, oh no, this is another where the red fern grows, because I made them
Oh
watch
yeah.
that movie because they wanted to get a dog. So
Oh,
I made
or
them watch
Old
a movie
Yeller.
where the dog dies, so that so they know it's gonna come. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wanted them to kind of be
All
prepared,
dogs
and they
go to
wouldn't watch
heaven.
Old Yeller because I already made them watch where the red fern grows. So
Yeah.
I had two
Well,
dogs
the thing
dead,
is,
and right,
with a lot of those kids' stories, there was they put sad stuff and scary stuff in there, and it was almost like a rite of passage. Like I saw it too, and yeah, I cried when the dog died, or I was scared when the monster came out, and it's just it was okay to have that sort of roller coaster of emotions as opposed to just well the whole thing is just happy go lucky like bouncy colors and sounds and or just pure mayhem like Looney Tunes where it's just slapstick. Like it's okay to have like a dramatic story. Like I think maybe there's something healthy about that of having like a dramatic story that you can go through all that stuff. I think I probably got more out of my parents like reading books to me as a kid though than actually seeing these movies because the only thing watching the movies really did for me was I guess make me appreciate the medium of films, like to go back and watch them again and again and again. But most movies we only saw the one time until the VHS days,
yeah,
except for I think the one exception was Fantasia. Like Fantasia came back to theaters like it seemed like a lot, but I guess a lot of movies did back then. But every time it came back to theaters, is like, okay, we got to make plans to go see Fantasia again. And all it is just lots of animation in front of classical music, pretty much, and maybe a couple Mickey Mouse jokes, and that's all it is.
yeah,
But
and my
it's
favorite
so
part of
amazing.
that is Mickey as the apprentice and the
Sorcerer's
brooms.
Apprentice. Yeah, Sorcerer's Apprentice. Well, that I had a storybook of that, and it was just stills from the movie and a short little story. But
Yeah,
I always liked the
I
dinosaurs.
had that as well.
The
But we
dinosaurs.
had that, and we had my mom would read a lot to me. My dad would kind of make up stories. He would flip the
That's
pages
cool.
and read some of it, but
Make up
he
his own.
kind of didn't get it. And right, so he would read me some, and he would say it like the same way over and over again, and then I would memorize what he said, and I'd flip the pages, and I had my mom convinced I could read before I could read because I could tell her the story.
Wow.
And then she's looking at the thing, and she goes, that's not right. They don't make any of those sound effects. And I'm making sound effects, and then she heard my dad telling me the story, and she's like, "That's
That
where you get it all from." And then she found out I couldn't read, so then she started teaching me to read. So then the book was "Are You My Mother?" So that was the book that she used to teach me to read, like word for word.
that's
So there
cool.
was that, and then after that, like she read me like Charlotte's Web
Oh,
as
I
like the
remember
first
Charlotte's
like
Web. Yeah.
full book. That's the first full book she read me.
Stuart
So
Little.
that was the first full book that I read my daughter.
Oh, cool. For me, it was yeah, Charlotte's Web, Stuart Little, The Wizard of Oz, stuff like that. But
Yeah,
that's
well,
kind of
and
cool
there were
what your
short
dad
books.
did.
Like the first
What your dad did. It
short book,
makes me think of
I
like
want to say that I
HeroQuest. Like he
really
was a
remember.
homebrewer even back then.
Yes, always. Well, right, he was, and like the games, like instruction, like he didn't read the instructions. He made up a lot of games, so a lot of games I played wrong, or we played with some modification or some homebrew, whatever he came up with his brothers.
Yeah.
The same thing with like the Risk game, because like I got half of a 1959 Risk game and half of a 1963 Risk game because there was like 8 kids. So they had 2 boards, and then so they had 2 sets of dice. So right, so like when it was like a rule, like if you had over like 25 armies on a country or whatever, then you could attack with 5 dice instead of the 3 dice, just to try to roll through the numbers faster.
Wow.
And like just playing some of those massive games like that, and it's like, all right, and then it's like, all right, and my dad's carefully picking up the board and setting it aside for the night, and he's like, all right, tomorrow morning we'll finish this game, and then 4 or 5 hours on Sunday, he's cooking breakfast, we're playing the game, and it's like, all right, we'll take a break for lunch and come back to it, and but it was fun, and usually my sister was out the first day, and then me and my dad is the next day, but here we are rolling like hundreds of people on each territory, you know what I mean? And it's like, all right, and you're rolling down the numbers or whatever, and then it's like, all right,
you could have been playing Axis and Allies.
How about we say that, 20 of these die and 20 of these die, and then we start, you know what I mean? Like, just because there's so much rolling, and then the same thing, it's like, all right, and then it was, all right, you rolled 3 6s, so now I'm only defending with 1 because I'm not going to roll a bunch of dice. And then you start watching dice because you start getting down to 20 men or so, and then it's still another
So, folks,
20 minutes of battling.
You've heard it here on the RantCast, the origin story of Jacer J and his imagination. All the stuff, the crazy
between that and then
on the board.
If there was nobody reading me stories or I wasn't reading my own, there was always all the cassette books.
Oh yeah.
And my favorite ones on those were the Star Wars cassettes. Read along and flip to the chimes. And before that, the record player that had a couple of them.
I was going to say,
I didn't have blue.
I had the record player too. I had like a kid size, but it had a real needle and it played real records. And I think I found it at my parents' house, and like the plastic shell it was in had like corroded and fallen apart. But I think the player still works. I probably needs a new needle. But yeah, the book and record. But like a lot of those, I would just put them on and like play with my toys while I listened to them. I didn't necessarily like follow along in the book. Like it's supposed to teach you how to read. You'll know it's time to turn the page.
I did both
like this.
Yeah.
Book 'em Dano.
Yep. Well, and a lot of them just had that one chime, and then you flip the page or whatever. But and then thinking like 82, 83, we got like a little blue plastic square record player with a cassette player in the front, but it was like a car one where you pushed it straight in and all it had was a fast forward eject button. But that was my first cassette player.
Cool.
Yeah, built into the record player.
We eventually got one. I'm trying to think. I want to say that you go to the library and actually rent one, and you get like a book and a cassette. And like that's how I experienced those early on. I know that they had later on in the 80s they had like Teddy Ruxpin and toys like that where you put the tape inside the figure and it would play it and have an animated.
Yeah, I never got a Teddy Ruxpin and I never got a My Buddy, but I did get Castle Grayskull and Snake Mountain, so
cool.
That's a win.
Garage sale many years later. My friends all had it. I had a few of the figures. It'd just be like, oh, go to your friend's house and play. But we had a not Teddy Ruxpin. I want to say there were other characters, but what we had, it was called Casey. It was like a robot, and instead of it being like an animatronic face that would move with the tape, it was like an LCD face. So like his mouth would like move and his eyes would look around while you're playing the tape. And it was supposed to be like for his own adventures. Like he was a blue Mega Man looking robot. But then you could put other music in there and he would like try to sing along with it, like with his face. So it was kind of funny. Like if you put rock music in there.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I had, well, not the same thing, but I had Speak in Math, and my sister had a Speak and Spell.
Speak and spell.
There's
Yeah,
electronic.
my friends had those.
So
I didn't have it. I had this other thing. It was like I'm trying to think what it was called. It was VTech was the name of the company, but it was like a computer, but it just had a membrane keyboard and the screen was like really really small and it was just like red LEDs and it was just digits. But I mean, you would there were like different things. You would like do quizzes, like it would like have you do math problems or like play music, and it would change the
I
stuff on
had
the screen.
something like that. I don't know if it was. I don't
I
know
can't
if it
remember what
was
it's called.
VTech,
It was
but
the
it
name of
had
the
a book
company.
that went with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it had a book that went with it, and you flip the pages, and I think the book only had like so many pages, and each page had a little thing, and it actually pushed something down on the one side. And I don't know if it read the book or how it knew what books it was or whatever. And it had the questions, and then you would
It's
put this
educational.
whatever letter was the answer, and it would give you like a right or wrong, and you would flip the page, and it would do another one. So I don't know if there's only a certain amount of books.
Yeah. I'd have to dig it out, see if the thing still worked. But yeah, I want to say it had like a bunch of C batteries. Like back then, it was all C batteries or D batteries, and it was a big deal,
Yeah,
like putting them all
I
in
want to
there
say
because
that
it was
was
like,
it. And
oh
if
man, I've
it's
got like
two
six
or
hours.
four was the minimum.
Yeah, and heaven forbid, you let the batteries like leak inside. Of course, back then we didn't know that you could use alcohol and a Q-tip to like clean it out. But that's a big mess. That many C batteries. But yeah, those were
Oh,
like
see,
early.
and we I didn't know about that. We always used it was always lemon lime soda.
Well, that probably worked too. We just tried to clean it out with like a wet paper towel, and that wasn't enough to get the corrosion off. And so it's just like, oh shoot, this thing is toast. Although
Yeah, I
we
don't think the
hardly ever
lemon lime
threw
soda.
anything
I think
away.
it was
We would
more
just
the crust than
put it in
the rust.
we put it in the closet. So it probably, if it isn't like rusted out, it might still work. But yeah, the Bookham Dano is talking about kid-size record player 45s could fit on them. Yeah, the records were small, the vinyl records, but there was like a little adapter so that you could put those same records on your full-size player because normally it just has that little pinhole. Like there's a peg that you put onto like I'm telling it to people who don't know what a record player is, but yeah, you've got the big vinyl disc and then you put it on the record player and then the needle reads it for the audio. But the small kids record player would often have like a big hole in the center. And so it had like this plastic disc that would go there. But you could put the same plastic disc on your big player so that you could play your little Return of the Jedi record on your big one. One that I really enjoyed, it was Batman and Robin meet Man Bat, which was book and record. And I found like a recording of it online. Like someone had made an MP3 of it and was like, oh, this brings back so many memories because you would have a comic book which actually I guess they had taken several issues of Detective Comics and like combined them into one story. So it was almost like a compilation. But then there was narration throughout the whole thing. So they had, the voices for Batman and Robin and Man Bat and the criminals and everything. And there was like this whole storyline. But that was really cool. But yeah, that was one of those records. And Return of the Jedi was another one. And I think I learned that version of Return of the Jedi more than the actual movie itself. So when we finally got the VHS, I was like, wait a minute, where's that particular scene or why is it different? Because I had memorized like the old version of it because it was just people doing impressions of the actors. It wasn't like the original movie actors. So there was a different
Yeah.
Luke and different Yoda, different Darth Vader. Book of Dano says, not sure if you guys are sport football guys, beat Detroit, just beat Kansas City and KC 21-20. Yeah, I don't follow it, but uh, congratulations and or tough luck depending on who you're rooting for. Live in Detroit for a little while, so I guess I should have been rooting for them. So woohoo, suck it, KC. I guess. Of course, I got a friend from Kansas City, so he's probably crying right now. No, I don't know. Yeah, so childhood memories, but definitely Disney was one of those brands. It was like Disney, McDonald's, Nintendo. Like you heard that title and you just automatically got excited because you were thinking they've created all these great things. and it just sort of brings to your mind entertainment, joy, creativity. And now you realize those companies weren't always the most ethical in their decisions, and they didn't always create good things. And it's just something that comes from, I guess, knowing more about those things as an adult, being more mature about it. So it's kind of sad. It's kind of a loss of innocence. But I think even back then, I mean, long before AVGN was a thing, I mean, I knew that there was some Nintendo games that were just trash, and magazines promoted them, and they were still bad. And there was some Disney stuff that was stupid. Like, I don't like this, and there was some McDonald's food that was just gross. But the general culture was that stuff was everywhere. It was in your face, and it was kind of a hard
Yeah, not
lesson to
everything could
learn.
be a winner.
Yeah, but it was a hard lesson to learn because at first you just thought, oh, this is a name I can trust. Like anything they give me is going to be great. And it's like, no. Something that I can't remember what age I was when I discovered it, but it was called there was a magazine, a kids magazine called Zillions. You ever heard of that?
Yes,
Okay.
that I
Okay.
have.
So it was called Consumer Reports for Kids. And I know that Consumer Reports used to be like a much bigger name than it is now. It kind of fell out of favor, but it was about reviewing products and like exposing like products that were too good to be true. And Zillions, which used to be called Penny Power, was like a kids version. So they would review toys and toy commercials and candy and stuff. And
And
I loved reading back
and
issues of
also
that
had
stuff as a
tons of
kid.
advertisements in it.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because like I just was so entertained by cartoons and TV toy commercials. It didn't matter if the toy was crap and I was never going to buy it. I still watched the commercial like over and over. Like that's how obsessed I was with that stuff. So I loved reading about, them like testing action figures. And it's like, oh, we threw this action figure in a big pile of sand and we froze it in a freezer and we hit it with a hammer and, here's the one that survived. And I was just thinking, like, imagine doing that now with like NECA figures. Like, it wouldn't get anywhere close. Like, kids would just destroy it. Like, yep, this is trash. But as adults, we're
Yeah,
like, no, 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 no. This is an adult collectible. This is you don't understand. Like, this is. It's like no, kids were smarter. But I loved that whole like reading behind the scenes and not just trusting what the media tells you or what the hype is about. And so I think some of my skepticism of all that was kind of like fueled by that side of things. And I mean, I loved watching like behind the scenes stuff, like how movies were made or what like I didn't know all the tricks they did in professional wrestling, but that's the sort of thing like I would have wanted to know as a kid. Like how did they do that? What's the secret, you know? So I've always been about that stuff, but I think magazines like that definitely fueled it for me. And I love the fact that they had like the whole archive of it at my local library. And I know that that stuff is gone because they did have floods later that destroyed a lot of that stuff. So it's sad that it's no longer there. But if I ever ran across like a lot of those on the eBay or something, it'd be really hard to pass up and not grab that just for old time's sake. I hope kids today have some kind of experience of something like that. Maybe it's our job to introduce, you know, it to them. I mean, it sounds like
yeah.
you do
And
a
then
lot of
you
stuff with your kids. I mean, you do stuff similar to like what your dad did for you, and that's really cool.
try to be anyway,
Yeah.
cool as I can be, but
Yeah.
they're good kids, so I don't have to be the strict guy all the time.
Yeah. I suppose, I mean, sometimes you got to lay down the law, but yeah, if you can, it's like Disney can't be the one to fire their imaginations. Maybe you have to be the one, you know, you have to do what Disney claimed to do, like for them. You have to be the magical dad or the magical uncle, or whatever.
Right. Well, and that's kind of like where they're both kind of growing out of Disney. So it's like, all right, so there's less and
Yeah.
less Disney. So it's like, and so we watch,
Well,
like I said, other stuff, and it's like, all right, so
yeah.
the I want to say like Universal has the better movies that came out in the past couple of years than
Yeah.
Disney has.
You don't just have
But
to look at the things. And I mean, that's how kind of like I was thinking of McDonald's. Like, I love to go to McDonald's. And I'll be honest with you, when I was a kid, it wasn't necessarily so much about the food, it was the toys and the playground and the characters. Like I
Yeah,
knew my
and the
mom
characters are gone.
yeah, my mom couldn't make the French fries as good because we didn't have a deep fryer. But the hamburgers we made at home were so much better than the McDonald's hamburgers. And she'd ask me
Yep.
like, "Well, why would you want to get that burger when you said you just like this so much better?" It's like, "Well, it's because I get to play in the playground, I get the Happy Meal toy, and even though the Happy Meal toy half the time was just like a dollar store quality toy that would break anyway, but just the idea that you were getting it made it seem so much better."
Yeah.
But again, it sort
Right.
of
And
shatters the
it's
illusion.
basically that's what it is. It's a
Yeah,
throwaway toy.
yeah,
Like
it's
if it breaks, it's not a big deal because it was free.
yeah, it's like you were coming out ahead. But there was still this idea that this company is magical and they're just going to give you this experience that you can't get anywhere else. And
Right.
wherever they give you is going to be great. And it's like but you see like holes in the narrative. You see there's little problems like okay, they've made some mistakes, not everything is great. You know, there's some things I can get better other places. And so then I feel less obligated to like support that particular company. You know, it's like, well,
Right. And they
maybe
used to put a bunch of puzzles and stuff on the Happy Meal boxes.
I remember
And
that
you used to
too.
punch out pieces and make parts, and you would sometimes make toys or make scenery that went with your
Yeah,
toy.
kind of like cutting out cereal boxes. Assuming it
The
wasn't
best
too
one were the
cluttered.
Hot Wheels because the box transformed into the ramp, and you dropped it down, and it went through
Uh,
because you had to connect the two pieces in the middle, so it would go through the box and come out the other side and roll
cool.
across the table. Like they were like the best, and it was just a simple. It's like, all right, here
Just
I got another
cardboard.
car to go in my collection.
Yeah,
Like I had a little suitcase full of cars. But all the Matchbox and the Hot Wheels cars fit perfectly
yeah.
on the Lego road. So I didn't have to
Little
build
die-cast.
cars. I just had to build houses and garages.
Yeah, they were encouraging you because you take it to the next step and go, gee, I've got a lot of cardboard sitting around that I could turn into scenery or ramps or whatever. I remember the Lego ones, and it's now looking back, it's like, gee, they hardly give you any Legos. You'd be so much better off just buying a box of Legos at the store. But it was like a few more to add to your pile. It's like, ooh, a few more
Yeah,
to make even more stuff.
right. And now my kids have some of my old Legos, and then they've gotten tons. They've probably got $200 or $300 worth of Legos in the past
Oh, the
five,
best.
6 years.
We have more
Between
Legos.
the friends and the elves and whatever other sets that they wanted. Oh, they wanted a roller coaster. All right, here's a giant roller coaster.
Yeah.
All right, here it is.
The best
And then my
place.
daughter went into the Harry Potter one, so she's
Oh yeah.
got like I don't know, giant Diagon Alley and a bunch of other stuff. It's like, all right,
The best place to get Legos now is like thrift stores. Like you can find just huge bins of them for like pennies. And I was thinking like,
yeah,
oh, you go to a dollar store and get because they're fully compatible, but they only give you certain colors. So yeah, it's if you know where to look, you don't have to buy the newest thing, and you can still have just as much fun, be just as creative. I
well, I
remember,
bought somebody's Lego Friends collection, like
yeah,
almost the
it's
entire, well,
it's kind of
her
sad.
entire thing or whatever, because she was
Yeah,
selling her collection to buy a
yeah.
car because she had grown up.
Well, yeah, there's that.
She was
I was
now
thinking of
17, and
yeah,
so
it's
I
like
bought them for like $20 a bag, and it was like, and I think I bought like
it'll
eight,
get
9 bags of them.
it'll go to a good home. It'll get loved. It'll get used. I was thinking it's kind of sad going to like a thrift store because you're like, it looks like somebody died. Like all their toys are there. But like you say, it could be just, hey, they were grown up. They're moving on to other things. Time to clear this stuff out.
Right.
Give it to a good home. Some kid that doesn't have it who wants it. Sure. Pay it forward. I want to acknowledge this
As
comment. Oh, go ahead. Say your thing, and then I want to acknowledge this comment here.
the last time I was at the thrift store was when we went on a camp out, and I went and ended up buying a risk game for $2.
Oh man, I love going to the board game
Yeah,
section. It's usually just Trivial Pursuit and stuff, but occasionally you find something, yeah, really good like that.
I think that's what we bought. I think that was the last time we bought the Saturday Night Live VHS edition, or no, DVD edition of Trivial Pursuit or something.
Oh man,
I
Saturday
think
Night
that
Live.
was the time before.
Saturday Night Live, a lot of times we didn't even get through the opening monologue. Like I'd sit down to watch with my parents, and it's like the dirty jokes start coming, and they're like, maybe we won't have you watch this. It's like go to bed. It's like dang it. But yeah, I always like the fake commercials. Okay, gotta acknowledge this. So Bookham Dano says, I think with Disney, why can't I see his comment? With Disney, the criticism in regards to Star Wars is the high expectation that was established for it given its history. Is generational, though, in my opinion. I never got to see 4, 5, 6 in theaters. Yeah, well, they've slowly brought them back, but they've really missed an opportunity with bringing them back to theaters. Like other movies have come back many times, like Jurassic Park, Back to the Future. But for some reason, it's like we can't show Star Wars. Why? I was born in '78, so I grew up on the VHS version, then got the special edition, and eventually got to the DVD release that came, episodes 1, 2, 3, which got a lot of grief the same way 7, 8, 9 got. I think Bookham Dano, though, it is a little bit different because with Disney, they're just churning it out so fast and they're so aggressive in terms of like pushing it on people and like criticizing people if they have any problem with it at all. And it almost feels like it's written by AI. So, okay, here's somebody else here. Who do we got? Oh no, that's just you, Jacer. I'm hearing your feedback. Can you hit mute? I think I'm hearing my echo. Sorry. Yeah, so Bookham Dano. Yeah, I mean, I remember when the prequels came out, people who were defending them from criticism were criticizing the original Star Wars trilogy and saying, well, there's problems with the original Star Wars too, so you can't be against these movies. And when the sequels came out, like people were saying, oh, these are so good because they're not the prequels. But then other people who didn't like them were saying, well, the prequels weren't so bad by comparison. But see, I don't feel like I'm one of those people because for me, it was episode 1 was the problem. I didn't have so much of a problem with 2 and 3. And I acknowledge that there are problems with them, just like I acknowledge there's problems with Return of the Jedi and Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. Like none of them are perfect films. There's problems with all of them. But I think with Disney Star Wars, like they're so afraid of taking risks with the films that they just took the problems that were already there and they just repeated them and expanded them to be even bigger. Like again, like an AI thing. Like if I gave you a story that has like 20 plot holes and then I give it to AI and AI just repeats it. Now there's like 100 plot holes or there's 200 plot holes. It just seems dumb. And the whole strategy seemed to be to just make it up as they went along, which is what George Lucas did with Star Wars. But again, they had the ability to take kind of like what Avalon Hill is doing with HeroQuest, and we'll be segueing into that soon. Is that instead of taking what came before and preserving the good and then expanding on that and building upon that good foundation with more good stuff that feels like it belongs but is new. Instead, they just like repeated everything, good and bad, so that now you have more of the bad. It, yeah, I think they've mishandled it from the beginning. And I know people praise the Mandalorian and say that John Favreau and Dave Filoni are like the saviors of Star Wars, but that's clearly not true. They don't have all the answers either. I mean, they're good at
Like
cartoons.
I watched the
Yeah,
first 2 seasons, I think, of Mandalorian,
same here.
and I think that's as far as I got.
And that's probably as far as you needed to go from what everybody says.
Yeah, I think my daughter was real big into Baby Yoda for a whole, I'd say about a year and a Christmas, and then yeah, the next. I don't know whatever happened. If maybe it's one of those things where I'm better off when she finds a show that's already done its run, because then we just can watch it at our own pace, and it's already
Exactly.
been
You know
over and
what it
done
is.
with. So when it's done, we're done.
Yeah,
Instead of right, if they have to wait for another season,
yeah,
they forget all about a show. You know what
yeah.
I mean? And if it takes over a year to make
That
another one, like
yeah,
they might never go back to it.
yeah. Like I remember being like talking with my coworkers and stuff, and like nobody even thinks about Game of Thrones anymore. Nobody talks about Mad Men or Breaking Bad, but there was a time when that was all people could talk about or think about because it's like, oh man, I just spent 46 hours watching the show, and they just talk about it with all the friends. Oh, remember that part and this happened, and it's like, no, I was asleep, or no, I was on my phone at that moment. It's like, but that to me is more of an event, like a modern event where it's like, like people used to get together to watch the Oscars or watch the Olympics. You have that shared
Right, and I
experience,
think I guess the
and when it's
Game
over,
of
it's over.
Thrones to a point, or at least the first couple seasons, but I think the hype died down a lot faster. I don't know, but then like I remember like The Sopranos being like real
Yeah.
big and everybody talking about
See,
that for a while. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So there's
I
like,
I was
and it's
never
like all right,
interested.
and then Breaking Bad was another big one
Yeah, The
that
Sopranos,
a
I
lot of
forgot
people
about.
talked about.
Yeah, it's like every new HBO drama. To me, so I'm a huge nerd, but when I was in school, like I took a class on Latin, learning the Latin language, and we saw clips of a show called I Claudius, which was about, the Roman emperors. And I was so interested in it that I actually tracked down the VHS tapes and I watched them all. And it was a really long series, but it was about like all the backstabbing politics. I mean, it was inspired by history, but obviously with a lot of dramatic license. Patrick Stewart was in it. There's like a lot of famous TV actors. The woman who was in the David Lynch Dune, who was the Reverend Mother. But I Claudius was all about like palace intrigue, court intrigue. So it was like these two people are having an affair, and this other person is like getting murdered by this other person, and this other person is like scheming and cheating, and this political thing is happening, and this other person gets killed, and oh, he got betrayed, and then there's all this stuff going on, and it was really interesting. But when it was over, I was like, I've had enough of this. Like, I don't want any more of this. And whenever one of these new shows would come out, I'm just like, this is just I Claudius again, except they're mobsters or they're drug dealers or they're corporate guys or they're in this fantasy world. But it's I Claudius all over again. And I realized looking back, like that same formula is like in William Shakespeare. Like if you look through all the Shakespeare's plays, like I watched, what was it called? The Hollow Crown. It was a like a mini series or TV series, and it was like going through each of the Shakespeare stories about like the kings of England and everything in Scotland. And it was always the same plot. It's like, okay, all these royals, like, don't you wish you could be these people with all their money and their wealth and their glamour, and they're beautiful, and they have all these like wild affairs, but then it always ends in tragedy and everybody dies and everybody's miserable, and everybody gets betrayed, and at the end of the day you're like, okay, well maybe my life isn't so bad, after all, and maybe I don't want to be a big king because it wouldn't be that great. It's like Scarface, the world is yours, and then you get shot in the back. Darn it.
Yep.
Yeah, but I feel like it's like I've already learned that lesson. I've already enjoyed that story. I don't need to see it 10 more times with just different set dressing. And so that's why I've never gotten into those shows. And I'm sure each one has its own nuances and things. But yeah, when I hear people talking about it, I'm just like, yep, that sounds like I Claudius again. So I guess I'm just an old cynic who can't enjoy things. Bookham Dano says, I
Yeah,
enjoy.
but they all follow the same plots and they all
Yeah.
do the same
Well,
thing, but
you could say that
it's
there's
always
only so
gonna.
many. Sorry, go ahead.
No, well, no, you're like it's. They use the formulas that work, and then they
Make it
overuse
work.
those same formulas.
Yeah, it's okay. I think it's been said there's only 7 stories that they use in film or something like that, or there's only 7 stories in literature, and it's okay to like retell those stories. But I think when you're consuming the media, if all you're doing is hearing the same story over and over again, it's hard to get excited about it over and over if it's that like compact together. Like as a kid, I remember like you read a comic book where Superman like saves the world. It's like, okay, that's great. But if the next week you're going to read another comic book where he saves the world, it better be something different. Otherwise, it's just more of the same. Like I could go back and read the same comic again to get the same effect. And I did that. I would read the same comic like over and over again. I wouldn't just read it once and then put it away. But I
Right,
think
or
cool
or it's
stuff.
an arc that takes like 3 comics and
Yeah.
to finish the one
Oh
story. But
man.
here he is in the first one creating this havoc.
Yeah.
Here's the next one where the confrontation happens and the
So many of
hero gets
those.
beaten back, or it's a stalemate and the bad guy
Yeah.
gets away. And then the third encounter or the third comic where the hero finally
Yeah.
wins and
So many of
overcame
those.
whatever it was that happened, and it's the same formula over and over again.
Yeah.
Superman,
But
Batman,
you would age out of it
and it's
though.
like, but you expected it.
Yeah, as a
Yeah,
kid though, you'd age out of it. So maybe you'd read the comics for a couple of years and then you move on. And then the next generation of kids would read it and it would feel fresh. Same thing with like wrestling. Like it wouldn't be just like, oh, it's the same old shtick. He's gonna turn his back, the guy's gonna hit him. Oh, his best friend betrayed him. Oh, the tag team gets together, then they break up. It's like always the same formula, but it feels new for you because you're new to it. And then you age out, and then
right.
the next generation comes in. That's fine. But it's like people who are stuck in these franchises for decades and decades, and they don't get anything new. They just get that cycle. It's like it's hard to
Yep.
stay invested. I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to show it to my kids, but it's just like I'll just show them the stuff I enjoyed. Why do I need to show them the newest thing that's just a reskin of the old one, but not quite as good? I don't know.
Yeah, reskins and remakes, and
I mean, I
well,
know,
even like the Disney was the Little Mermaid.
yeah,
Like, I think the Little Mermaid, I think she looks better as she would have been, or Halle Berry would have been better cast as Ursula, the Sea Witch, and made her like
Holly
nicer
Bailey.
and
Holly,
actually,
you said it wrong.
yes,
I was gonna say
yeah, okay,
Holly Berry as the Little Mermaid. I'd watch that, but Halle
no, yeah,
Bailey,
yeah, yeah,
totally different person.
yes,
I'm sure
all
she
right, yeah, yeah,
I'm sure she did her best, but yeah, it's like who cares? I
right. But I'm just saying is, I think she would have made a better Ursula as someone like to really seduce Ariel into this whole thing going with her instead of but I didn't see the new, so it's like hard to criticize, but
yeah.
just from the stills, that's what I thought it was. And then they're like, and my daughter's like, no, she's the Little Mermaid. I'm like, no, that's the Sea Witch. And I'm like, the Little Mermaid has red hair, and that's, and she's like, no, but I'm like, okay, whatever, all right, but how come her hair's not red? You know what I mean? And she's like, oh, well, so I'm like, what? I just
There we
thought
go.
it was the Sea Witch. And I was like, oh, that's so cool that they made her like younger and, she can
You saw
really
it.
entice Ariel into giving up her voice or whatever. Like,
I like your
it
version
made more
better.
sense. And that's what she would look like. You know what I mean? Because doesn't she look better when she's trying to marry the prince or whatever? She also changes shapes and all that stuff.
That's true.
So
She
that's
does do
what I
that.
thought it was. And that's what I thought it
Oh,
happened. And
I
yeah, I was
wanna
way off just by like
I want
three
to see Jacer's
three like
version.
pictures.
Yeah. Oh man, I as a kid, I remember I would see like half of a movie on TV, and like we had to shut it off because we had to go to bed or whatever. I had to do homework, and so in my head
Yes,
for
that
years,
happened a lot,
I
especially
had so
like
many
the
like
8 o'clock movies.
I would finish the movie in my head, like my imagination would tell me this is how it was should have ended. And then a lot of times in my later life, I would go back and watch it, and I'm like, what a disappointment. This was nothing what I was expecting. Like
Yeah,
this sucks.
yeah,
This
they
isn't
didn't tie
even
up
good.
any loose ends.
But I made it into something so much better because I wanted it to, have a great, payoff. So anyway,
Yeah,
I gotta,
that's
Jacer.
how it was for all the 8 o'clock movies for
Oh man,
me. Like,
I've
9 o'clock was bedtime, so we
but you
watched the first
still
hour, and then the second hour, right, nothing.
you still wanted to try it even though you weren't going to finish it. I've enjoyed
Yes,
this conversation, Jacer, but I gotta address these comments. So Bookham Dano, sorry man, I know you've been saying a lot of stuff here, and we rant about Star Wars constantly. So if you like the sequel trilogy and you like it better than the old movies, more power to you. I'm just saying, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil. I mean, from my point of view, it's crap, and it's crap because it's trying to be like the old stuff, but it's not doing it as well. That's just what I think.
I
It's
I
not
didn't
doing
even
Star
watch
Wars.
the ninth movie. I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah,
I watched, I think, part of it. But I didn't
pretty
watch it,
much,
and I was gonna watch it, and I think I fell asleep twice, and then I was like,
pretty much what you heard about it is
I don't know,
true.
I give up.
Yeah, it's people say, and this is true. I think both of these things are true. I can tolerate the new Star Wars if I have one of two mindsets. One, or three, I should say. One, this is fan fiction. Two, this is a role-playing game of people trying to like live in the Star Wars world, or three, this is mindless escapism, popcorn movie, shut off your brain, have no expectations. But that last thing, I feel, is just an empty excuse because you can do that for anything. You could say, "Oh yeah, don't expect anything good." Like, but if I'm bored, like what this movie was good because it gave me a nap. Like that doesn't. I'd rather watch something that I can actually like cheer for and be excited about. Like I have choices besides this, so I don't feel like to be a loyal Star Wars fan, I need to just like choke this down and enjoy it and pretend I enjoy it. So that's kind of my attitude. Other people are different. Bookham Dano says, I enjoy all of the movies. Fair enough. My favorite one was Rogue One because it was Star Wars, but it didn't really follow the script of the Skywalker saga movies. And see, my comment to that, I just want to say this, is that I know for a while, like you were hearing people say this online, and I might have even like thumbed it up at one point, was to say, "Oh, I'm sick of hearing about Jedi. I want to hear about smugglers, and I want to hear about, regular rebels and stuff." But I think that was just because they were making the Jedi boring. And so it's not that the Jedi aren't interesting, it's just that they weren't doing a good job telling those stories anymore. So you were wanting to hear that other stuff. So it didn't have to be that way. And Bookham Dano says, as a kid, we called McDonald's Mac and Don's Supper Club. It was a special treat. Yeah. Oh yeah. And I wanted to go there way more than my parents would allow me. Like I'd been left to my own devices, I would have eaten junk food and fast food exclusively. I would have watched TV all day and never done anything. But they forced me to go outside and play and all that other stuff. But we definitely got our share of all those things. Or at Halloween with McDonald's pumpkin, those were always cool. See, I remember them having like little in trick or treating, you get these coupons for like ice cream, and you didn't really
Yeah,
think of
you get the little mini ice creams,
yeah, and you take
the
it to
extra
McDonald's like you
small
got a
cones.
free yeah, it's like getting a free cookie or a free ice cream at McDonald's. It was
That and the
way better.
Wendy's Frosties.
Yeah, so those were special treats because it wasn't everywhere. It wasn't like you were guaranteed to have it. Just like having like color comics on Sunday in the newspaper. It was a special deal. It was like, oh my goodness, you just go crazy over it.
Yeah,
Now it's
it's
like,
the
you
best.
can get that just pumped into your veins constantly if you want. Bookham Dano says,
Yeah,
I
you
don't
get a
even.
cartoon every day
Yeah.
on
So maybe
email and
as a
internet.
as a parent, maybe I'm not saying your kids need to be Spartans, but I mean just kind of like give them a taste of like sometimes less is more. Sometimes anticipation, savoring it, like rather than just learn to appreciate it for what it is, and it's not just a cheap throwaway thing that you take for granted. He says, I don't even want to know how much money we have spent on Legos. I know there's well over 10,000 pieces in the kids' Lego table downstairs. They all have issues, but they're
Yeah.
all enjoyable to watch. Well, there's something to be said for that. I mean, I thought the prequels as action movies were very enjoyable. And they were more enjoyable than the original Star Wars in that sense, just in terms of action. Now, in terms of story and characters, I think the originals were superior. He says, for the Disney Plus, I enjoy them, but many times the acting, most of them, and the storytelling is rough to get through. Heck, every episode of Mandalorian could be described as going to a place, reluctantly helps the natives, insert random drama, then he saves the day and leaves. Yeah, it's like a western, and I think it's fine that
It
they
was
went back
very
to
like
the.
Firefly, right?
Hmm,
The Firefly, and
yes, I
it was
just watched
very
that.
like that.
Yeah,
And I liked that show.
I like Firefly. I'd
And
never
they made
seen
the
it.
movie, and then they made the movie to end it because they never
Hey,
finished
hey,
the
Jacer,
TV show, so
I'm
they
just
made a
gonna
movie.
Jacer, I'm just gonna insist on one thing. We're not gonna talk about Serenity because I haven't seen it yet. I just watched
Oh,
very recently
no problem.
the entire series on DVD. I never watched it before. I thought I had seen some of it, but actually that was Farscape that I had seen, and I had
Okay.
confused the two in my head. But yeah, people were telling me, "Oh, Firefly, Firefly," to the point of nausea. It's like, don't tell me about Firefly anymore. I'll watch it when it's my turn to watch it. And I got the box set at the
I'm glad you
library,
did. 'Cause
and I enjoyed
it's a
it. I
good,
enjoyed it a lot. And I
yes.
knew going in, okay, it's only one season and a movie, and I'll give it 4 episodes, like I always do. It's like 4 episodes to get my attention. If you don't, then I don't care. but I liked it enough. I watched it and I didn't binge it. I watched, I think, 2 episodes a day for like however many, I guess a week and a half to get through the whole. It was 14 episodes, and I guess the pilot episode was like 2 or 3 episodes combined. But yeah, I watched them in the order and everything. There was a couple things I thought were kind of stupid, but I mean, I accepted the fact that it's like, okay, this is the show, and I'll just take it for what it is. So I do want to watch Serenity, and even though I know that, yeah, it still could have been more. But yeah, I do see some parallels now that you mention it between Firefly and The Mandalorian. Or I was even thinking like the spaghetti
Yeah.
westerns, which I'm watching now. I haven't seen very many westerns. Like Strange Bus, he was all about the westerns. Watched him with his grandpa, but most of the westerns I've seen have
Yeah.
been like in my adult life. Like I never watched those growing up. It wasn't popular, except for like maybe The Lone Ranger. But everything else I've seen since then. So I'm sort of
I was
watching
gonna
that
say,
now, and I'm
growing
like,
up
oh yeah, this
with my
feels like
grandparents and my
Star
dad,
Wars.
it was almost all war movies and westerns.
Yeah, war movies, I never liked watching them. I always had to be dragged to see them, and it's like I've seen some of the good ones, and it's like, okay, I can see why people like this. I mean, I did see some like is it Unbroken, and I saw Hacksaw Ridge. Some of those I saw in the theater, but again, that was because other people I knew wanted to see it, dragged me to see it. It's like, okay, that was pretty good. It's pretty intense, but it was pretty good. But yeah, westerns. But I think one person, I can't remember now who it was, but they were saying, I think it was some YouTuber. Sorry, I forgot your name, but they were saying, well, their strategy in making the Mandalorian was to go back to the roots of the things that inspired Star Wars, rather than just rehashing.
Which was a space western, yeah.
Yeah, rather than rehashing the plot elements and characters and tropes from the original Star Wars movies into a new format, which is what the sequels all did, is to just go back and say, okay, samurai movies, serials, westerns, let's just dig into that and just try to make as if we were making just more of that. And with mixed results, but I think the Baby Yoda thing was a major marketing genius move because you got
Oh
tons of
yeah.
women who loved to see babies and cute animals like watching it for that reason. It's like, okay,
Right.
and it's like the lone wolf and cub thing, you get that tie. So yeah, that kind of works.
Right. And my daughter just wanted to see what happened next.
Yeah, yeah.
Where's Baby Yoda? Where's Baby? And then
But
she's like, Grogu. He has a name.
the whole
So
thing
it's like
about
she got to name him because she got to find out the name when they found out the name, and
yeah,
that, you know what I mean.
sure, it
So
was
it
a
was big
special
for
moment.
her, and I was like,
Yeah,
all right, cool.
you're happy for him. Yeah, and I'm never
Right. So she had
gonna
a Baby
say
Yoda shirt and a Baby Yoda backpack and a little
if
Baby Yoda.
I'm
So
never gonna tell
made her
someone.
Christmas.
Yeah, I'm never gonna tell some kid that enjoyed something, oh, you can't enjoy that because I think it's subpar. Rather, I'm gonna
Right.
tell
She
the
was 8 years
studio.
old. She loved the crap out of it, and
Yeah,
people would have said, all right, well, when I was like 7 or 8, it was
I would have
Ewoks.
loved that. Yeah, I did
You
not
know what I mean?
mind.
So
There were
it
people that
was
hated
my
Ewoks.
Ewok moment 20 years later.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I mean, I didn't have an Ewok plushie or anything, but I had a couple of the toys, and it's like I was a little bit older, but I wasn't like, oh, the Ewoks are terrible, they've ruined Star Wars. It was just, yeah, they're there, and they're all right. I didn't mind them,
Right. And to me, they were just bigger gizmos.
but some
You
people
know,
really
I was like,
loved. Yeah,
I love Gizmos. I love Gremlins. That was a
yeah.
great movie. So you know what
I
I mean. So they were just bigger Gremlins or
I just feel
Gizmos to me.
like
You know what I mean?
I just feel like a lot of the whole media drama and the fighting with people on Twitter and all that stuff that Lucasfilm has been doing, it just really seems really unprofessional. But I feel like they'll push something on us as an audience, and then they'll say, "Oh, you didn't like it? Well, then it wasn't made for you." It's like, what are you talking about? Like, Star Wars was made for everyone. Uh, they are doing like the scattershot approach. Like they want to get like presumably when you see Star Wars, they're going for action movie fans. That's why they put all those action sequences in. They're going for people who want to see romance, so they've always got the romance thing going. They put cute characters in there. Why? Because they want little kids and women and people who just generally like to see cute
Right.
things or
The
collect
reason
things.
that the Jawas right?
And
We're little tiny
and
little
kids
sand
who, yeah,
guys or whatever collecting junk.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
kids
Like
who
the
buy
same reason they
toys.
were in that movie, the same reason
Yeah,
that the Ewoks are in the last movie.
all those things, they're going for all those audiences. It's not just one specific audience. And they put humor in it. So it's like the old style of Hollywood film, like before the rating system, before they had R and G and PG and everything, and you had the kids movies over here and the adult movies, there was the family movie where, yeah, there was some violence in it, there was some humor, there was some romance, there was cute stuff, there were jokes, there were cartoons beforehand. There was something for everyone, and some of the
Right.
jokes went
Well,
over the
it was
kids'
kind of
heads
like
and
they were all PG-ish. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
they were
They
all
all
PJs.
your parents are always with you when you're watching this
Yeah,
stuff when it
everybody
came
would
out. So
go
it was
to the
their
movies.
responsibility to tell you it's not real,
Yeah,
and
it's don't
you know what
worry.
I mean, and all that stuff.
Yeah, Zorro didn't really blow up in the train. He'll be back next week or whatever. Yeah, it's just catch up. Yeah, I remember that stuff too. I will say though, when we would be watching something really scary or over the top, and my parents would like put their hands over my eyes, like in my head, my imagination made it seem worse. So it kind of backfired. But at the same time, I mean, they were trying to be responsible. Like, maybe the kid shouldn't see that, because I would be the type of kid where I would insist on watching something super scary, and then I'd be like knocking on my parents' door in the middle of the night, saying like I'm scared. Like, why did you watch that? You insisted you wouldn't be scared, and now you're scared. It's like, yeah, I'm a stupid kid. Sorry. Yeah, but anyway, I'm sure some parents can relate to what I'm saying there. Okay, so I want to get through these comments. Sorry, everything that's said reminds me of something else, and that's how we do it on the Rantcast. So Bookham Dano says, blah blah blah. Heck, every episode of Mandalorian. Oh, he already said that. Yeah. Star Wars for me was the books. I love the expanded universe way more than I did the actual movies. Actually, that attitude is very prevalent from people in my generation. Like for a while, I did agree with that. Like I enjoyed the books and the comics and the games more than the movies. And I think it was because I'd seen the movies so much, and for me, they were like set in stone. Like I couldn't imagine Luke doing anything else but what I saw on screen. So when I got the books, it was like allowing me to have those other adventures. Like I wasn't yet willing to allow Star Wars to just be anything. Like I wasn't playing the role playing game. I wasn't LARPing. I wasn't, going into the universe and just creating my own stuff. I was just it's a weird thing because it's almost like saying you can't make fan fiction because it's too sacred or something. But it's not. I mean, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, whatever you want to think of, you can make up your own stories. Maybe you can't sell them and make any money off of them, but there's nothing stopping you. I mean, just like everybody, like if you look through history, like King Arthur, it wasn't just one author that created King Arthur and all of his adventures and that was it. And everybody else just talks about it, like Shakespeare. It's like, no, every generation people made new King Arthur stories and they contradicted the old King Arthur stories and nobody cared because it was that author of that generation's interpretation of those legends and stories. And they made up new characters and new stuff and everybody thought it was cool. But Star Wars, like if you can allow yourself to get to that point, it's great. Like it's a great universe to play in. But instead, you've just got George Lucas and the expanded universe and Disney, and that's it. And so people get really pissed off when you change something or a character acts out of character or they have a bad story arc or a bad end. It's like, how could you do that to Han Solo? As opposed to just saying, oh, yeah, that's just one possible interpretation of Han Solo. I like this one better than that one or whatever. But yeah, a lot of the expanded universe, and when Strange Boss and I talk about the expanded universe, I always sound like I'm a hater, like I hate everything. But I really enjoyed the expanded universe. I liked reading Timothy Zahn stuff. I liked reading the comics. Like we were talking about, Kevin J. Anderson and all the crap he gets, and it's like Tales of the Jedi, pretty good. You know, so I enjoyed a lot of that stuff. I mean, some of it I laughed at, and some of it I said, it doesn't feel like Star Wars. That's stupid. But there was enough good in there that I appreciated it. And yes, a lot of that stuff was copied into the prequels, and a lot of that stuff was copied into the new Star Wars. So you can say some of that expanded universe stuff is honored, and some of it is totally thrown away. And it's like, well, why didn't they use that? That was like so much better than what we got. But yeah, it is what it is, I guess. But there's so much of it out there. Like a lot of it was me thinking that, oh, to know the full story, to know the real history of Star Wars, I need to read all of it, and it was impossible. There's too many books, too many comics, too many games. There's not enough hours in the day to like watch it all. So now it's become like they have every niche. So there's like the kid Star Wars, the teen Star Wars, the grown-up Star Wars, the far out Star Wars.
Yeah, it's diverse.
Yeah, but that's okay too because there's no FOMO here. It's just like, oh, a new Star Wars came out. I never saw it. Maybe I never will. Okay, there's another
Yeah,
new Star Wars. Was it any good? Nah, it sucked. Okay, well, I'm not missing anything then. Or, oh, it was good. Okay, I'll check it out and see if I like it. That's more the attitude. Whereas at one time it was like, oh, there's a new Star Wars out. To have the complete vision of Star Wars, I must consume this new installment. It's like, oh, the new Jedi Order. There's 29 books. I don't have time to read all those. See, I had heard though that the new Jedi Order was planned to be like much bigger than it was. Like it was this huge number of books with this huge number of authors, and they were working together to make the story like really coherent and tied together. Because that was always the problem. A new book would come out, and it's like it would be poorly researched, and it would contradict each other, and so there was all those questions of canon. Because again, people cared about that continuity. It wasn't like King Arthur where you could just make up whatever you wanted.
right. But with
And it's yeah,
every new book you add more stuff that you
like, no,
have
no,
to
no.
work around.
That guy can't be there because you killed him off in that other book, or you said that guy can never return. So then, it's not like a comic where you
Right.
just go, yeah, it was a time warp. Oh, he was a robot, or oh, that was a different universe. It's like start over.
Right. The web gets so big that you can't decide, you can't even figure out
Yeah, it's
what
like a
it
soap
is
opera.
anymore because you can't,
Yeah.
right. Every author can't read all the material that's already out.
Yeah, or wrestling. I mean, it's so funny with wrestling because you're like, wait a minute. Hulk Hogan, why are you trusting that guy? He betrayed you like 10 times in the last 10 years. Like, it's not going to go any better this time. Like, don't do it. But if, you just tuned in a week ago, you don't know that. You don't care. You just go, okay, let's go with it.
Yeah.
Trust him. Oh, he betrayed him. Oh, no, I can't believe it. It's like you saw it coming. Yeah, but the new Jedi
Yeah.
Order, what I
Oh, wait,
heard,
but it's like, all right, they get their common enemy. So it's like, all right, then they
yeah,
band together and
yeah,
now they're
exactly. Well,
friends.
I love that
And
because
then all of a sudden, right, it's not anymore.
I watched, I mean, you say what you want about Hulk Hogan and all the stuff he's done in his career, but there was some interview early in his career where he was on some talk show. I can't remember what it was now, but they asked him, like they were treating it as if it was real. They were just like, well, wait a minute. When you started in wrestling, you were allied with, this was it, what was the guy's name? Was it Bobby the Brain Heenan? Like you were allied with him, and he was having you like attack people when they weren't looking and stuff. And he said something like, well, brother, in his way, it's like, well, I trusted him, and he had me on this path, and then I finally realized that he was no good, and so I had to turn. And it's like it was in character. It was like, oh, okay, so you're acknowledging
Yeah.
that he used to be a heel and now he's a baby face again.
Right. And he's the original, like, anti hero that
Yeah,
switched out and became a hero
right.
because he was just basically a hired thug that
Yeah,
had to,
but
and he had a whole redemption arc and became a
yeah.
hero.
But see, the modern way of doing that is you'd have the Vince McMahon or whoever talk to the guy and say, listen, you don't mention that stuff. It doesn't exist. We're only going to talk about what it is right now. Like that's the line. Okay, and they would only talk about that, and it'd just be like, so I used to be a bad guy, right? And you just be like, oh, what are you talking about? This interview's over. Like that's how. But back then it was just like, oh, you roll with it, you acknowledge it, and you move forward, and it's like, oh, it's now a complex part of the story. So he's an interesting
Yeah.
character,
Well,
and then
right. And because
yeah,
they kept this, they had their own, basically their bullet points. And then they went, and it was all improv. And then it
yeah,
went from that, and then it got like super
internal logic.
scripted.
Yeah, internal logic. Well, and when Hulk Hogan went to Japan, he was like, wow, I thought the WWF title was important, but this title here in Japan is so much better, and like I'm so humbled that I could have had a chance to win it and all this stuff. And it was just like, oh, that's cool. Of course, now people back home might never see that, but again, there was a logic to it. Like he goes in there, he improvs it, adapts to the situation, and it sort of feels as if it's part of a bigger universe that's coherent. Kayfabe
Yeah,
was actually a thing. Yeah, back then it was. It sure was. Yep. So, but what I heard about the back to the new Jedi Order. The new Jedi Order was supposed to be much more expansive, and they cut it back. And I thought it was because of the quality. Like the quality wasn't as good as they were hoping for, so they scaled it back. But it may have actually had more to do with the fact that the prequels were coming out, and there was going to be this shift in focus to the different time period, to the Clone Wars era, as opposed to the post Empire era. And so they didn't want to just, I guess, devote as many resources to that stuff. So I don't know how much of that is true, but I've heard different things. And but I haven't read any of the new Jedi Order. I just remember when they started out, it was like, oh, Chewbacca gets killed, spoilers, and there's aliens from another galaxy who don't believe in the Force and use biotech instead of machinery, and they're a super threat, and so the former rebels and Empire band together to fight them, and a bunch of people get killed, and one of Luke's kids like turns evil or something. But I mean, I heard all that stuff and I just thought, well, I don't know if that sounds that interesting. And I'd already read a lot of the novels and comics, and so I'd kind of just walked away from it. But maybe I would enjoy those stories now. I don't know. I got the Spectre of the Past, Vision of the Future because I'd heard good things about them. The later Zahn books, not the, I guess more have been written since then. Like Thrawn died at the end of the first trilogy, spoilers, but they brought him back like multiple times. But I still haven't read them. I mean, they've been sitting on my shelf for like a year now. Of course, I'm reading Lord of the Rings, and I'm enjoying that a lot. And it took me forever to get into that. So I guess I just read it at my own pace, just enjoy it at my own pace. But yeah,
yeah.
I don't feel any major desire to like watch Ahsoka or Andor or any of this newer stuff, or even to care about it, which is sad, I guess, from like they failed to like get my attention. I'm more appreciative and more willing to give a chance to the stuff that I missed. That at the time I wrote off because there was too much. Like just think about it. If I was complaining that there was too much Star Wars back in like the early 2000s or the late 90s, think of what I think about that now with too much Star Wars. Like, yeah, they're not coming out with a movie every year, but all this TV stuff and yeah, games, comics, whatever, young adult novels.
That's
Like,
one thing I always had trouble reading was sci-fi. I just could never get into it.
I love reading sci-fi.
I was always reading fantasy, and it was always like waiting forever for another book to come out.
Oh
And then
yeah,
it was like, all right, and then
if
I
I had,
did it, and then
I
I
did both.
think it was Song of Ice and Fire. I was like, all right, and then I just got soured on it because it was
Yeah,
like, all right,
I'll
and
never
then
finish
Game
that
of
series.
Thrones came out, and I was like, right, so it was like one of those things. But I had gone through that with Wheel of Time, like waiting such a long time between
Yeah,
books. And
I
I did
bet.
it with Dark Tower, waiting for Stephen King to write another
Oh
book.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah,
like that was a bigger event for me. Was another book coming out in a series I was reading
yeah.
more than a TV show.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. I get that. And so that's where the strength of going back to a show that's had its completed arc, and you know if there's a bad season that you can skip and all that sort of thing, and you can just enjoy that for what it is rather than being anticipation like, oh man, this latest thing that everybody's watching and it's coming out next week, it's premiering, oh I got to see it so I can see what, and then you're disappointed or all this other stuff. Yeah, there's so many things. Bookham Dano says, but they have a TV series is basically a full length movie cut into parts. Yeah, I suppose. I don't know, but what I've been
And
hearing, I know the
I could do like an hour ish or a little
I
over
don't
an hour if it's a long
the biggest
episode or
the
two
biggest
episodes if they're short.
the biggest mistake I made was binge watching The Mandalorian because I who hasn't done this, but you know somebody who has a subscription and they're like, you got to watch this, you know, and so you only have so much time to watch it, and you I started out watching a couple episodes of The Mandalorian, and I guess I was telling myself, this is okay, this isn't bad, but I need to watch it so I can comment on it, as opposed to I actually enjoy this show. Is more like I need to be able to evaluate it, like I was going to review it or something. But I forced myself to watch 2 seasons, and I want to say I watched the second season like in a really short span of time. And I got I had like a pounding like migraine headache by the end. I was not enjoying myself. I was in pain. And I was still trying to force myself to watch this show. And it wasn't good enough to get me through it. But even after all the pain went away and I got a chance to rest, I'm like, that was good, but was it really as good as everyone said? And I don't think it was.
That robot bounty hunter, whatever thing. Like, I thought that thing was awesome. That was my favorite part of the show.
Sure, there
There's,
were definitely moments, but I think
well, that was, like I said, that was my favorite thing. My daughter, it was Baby Yoda. So, you know what I mean? Like it's a little bit of everything. Like, I didn't
yeah,
mind the
I think it was
Mandalorian itself,
I
but
think
I
it was
liked
the
the
world.
parts
Yeah, I
with the
think
robot and the shootouts, like, because they were fighting
yeah.
each other and then they were fighting other people.
But
I think that was my favorite part.
I remember some other shows just having a better experience, like watching when Doctor Who was brought back. Like every episode was special. Like even though I had the ability to binge watch them, whether I watched them individually or watched them like together, everything was new. Whereas with this, it still kind of felt tired and kind of old. Like even though they haven't had as much like Boba Fett stuff, I felt like I knew the character so well that all the stuff I'm seeing with the Mandalorian and trying to like talk about the Mandalore culture and all that stuff, it didn't feel like it felt like I already knew it and it wasn't interesting, which is a weird thing to say because they were kind of making it up. Like it wasn't necessarily the same as other stuff that they had before. So I don't know. I just didn't react to it the same way a lot of people did. And I don't know. I guess my experience is not typical because for a lot of people, when you're watching a show, it's more about the anticipation or the communal experience you have with the people. Like I was just watching this by myself, and I was already pretty jaded on Star Wars stuff. So I guess I acknowledge that the Mandalorian 1 and 2 were pretty decent for Star Wars at the time, but I wouldn't say that they were like the savior of Star Wars. And from what I've read about
No,
the Book of Boba Fett,
I think it was.
yeah, is that everybody was in love with Boba Fett since the moment he was marketed to them in the holiday special. Like, and I had the Boba Fett action figure before I'd seen a Star Wars movie of any kind. Like, he's Boba Fett. He just looks cool. Like, who is he? What is he? I don't know, but he looks cool. Like, I had the toy. And it's like, okay, I get that. But it's like, okay, we're going to give you the Boba Fett story, but we're going to give you an actor who can, like, barely do it. And he's going to spend most of his time just sitting in the desert and, like, not wearing the armor and not acting like the character. Like I haven't watched it, but that doesn't sound like something I want to see. I mean, maybe I'd watch it and have a different experience, but it just it just doesn't seem like it's worth my time. So I just didn't give it my time. And I think that's okay to do because you can't watch every movie so that you can say every movie sucks. Like you have to make choices. You
Right.
have to decide, is this worth my time or not? And yes, you can't go by what critics say, going back to Rotten Tomatoes, because it could be fake, or somebody just likes a movie just because a certain actor is in it, or they only like it because of a certain political message or a certain company made it. Like those are petty things. Like that doesn't matter to me. But if somebody I know who has similar tastes says it's good because XYZ and I can get behind that, it's like, okay, I will give it a chance. And maybe I'll like it, maybe I won't. But I still have to be discerning because there's like a million other things I could spend my time on or my money on. So I have to make that decision. So I have to make it somehow. So I made the decision not to watch the Book of Boba Fett or the next season of The Mandalorian. I tried to watch Andor. I don't care to try to watch Ahsoka. Like I don't care about that character. Like I've seen a little bit of the Clone Wars, and everybody tells me, oh, just when you stopped watching the show is when it started getting good. Like okay, but I watched 2 seasons of it, or almost 2 seasons. That was enough. Like it's hard.
That's another one
Hard
where
for me
I
to go
think I
back.
watched the entire thing for
Yeah,
the animated Clone Wars,
that's okay. And
and I thought it was pretty good.
I thought
And
it
that
was
actually
fine.
changed my opinion on Boba Fett from the kid that they made him in the prequels, where like he went from like, oh, he's this awesome tough guy bounty hunter to like he's the kid of a bounty hunter that doesn't know anything and is just running away and really not,
Yeah.
doing anything. But yeah, he's going to become something cool. And then in the Clone Wars, when you like see him with other bounty hunters, but he's like still young,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Well,
I
so
think that was a pretty cool, like, that it had some character development in it.
that's fine, and
And
that's
I
good.
think that it would work if they threw him in The Mandalorian for an episode here or an episode there. But I don't think that there has to be so much focus on Boba Fett himself, because that takes away the mystery of the character,
Yeah.
and kind of ruins it more. Where if you see
Yeah.
snapshots of Boba Fett
It's
in different
better.
time periods,
Yeah, if you
I
don't
think
know
it's
everything.
better as an anthology type deal,
Kind
or
of like
where
the Young
he
Indiana
makes a
Jones
cameo in.
Chronicles. Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, where you got like young Indy and old Indy and in between Indy.
Yeah, well,
Maybe.
right. Well, like I said, you got him in the prequels with this. You
Yeah.
got him in the Clone Wars at a slightly later age. If you wanted to throw him into everything that you did, and you're like, oh yeah, he's in here, or he's even just an Easter egg in the background somewhere, and you don't even know what he's doing. You know what I mean? You just
Yeah.
happen to see him, you know,
And maybe it's
watching
better.
somebody.
Maybe that they could learn something from the Avalon Hill guys for HeroQuest, because we got to talk about HeroQuest before we wrap tonight. Is that maybe it's better if they don't fill in all the gaps. Maybe it's better if they let people's imagination take hold. Because to me, Star Wars, one of the reasons Star Wars is good is because I'm just getting a little glimpse of this, what appears to be this amazing universe with this amazing history. But if you just say, okay, now we've filled in all the gaps, we've told you the entire story, we've laid out all the history, there's no room for anything else, it kind of loses something, because now you've just set it all in stone, and some of it is kind of stupid. Like, I'd rather
Right. It's
not
the
know
same
some
thing
of that
with
stuff.
Star Trek. Like, if they
Yeah.
discovered every planet, then
So
there's
have some
nothing left.
yeah,
Like,
have some
what's the
restraint.
point?
Yeah, have some restraint. So
Yeah,
like, if I play the
there's
Star Wars
always got to be
RPG,
more to explore.
if I play the Star Wars RPG, which I want to do someday, the D6, I'm going to make up planets that don't exist in any version of Star Wars, and I'm going to put them in there because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make up aliens that don't exist, in the official canon, because that to me is what Star Wars is. It's not just, oh, okay, there's this list of things that you've seen in the movies or the TV shows or the official, Pablo Hidalgo said it was real. Like, who cares about that? So I want to
Actually,
transition.
the next thing I look forward to
Yeah,
playing is actually the Alien RPG.
Alien RPG. I have some figures from that,
Yeah,
from one of them. Um, okay, I want to acknowledge what Bookham Dano says, and I want to transition into HeroQuest, because we've had a great conversation. This is probably the best like non-Hero Quest conversation that we've had on the show without Strange Bus, if I do say so myself. And glad you could join us. So Bookham Dano says there's no way I could sit down and watch all of that in a row. Maybe 2 episodes in a row max, then time to process it. And I agree with you. I think that is best.
yes,
I don't. If I'm gonna do a movie marathon, like, this is what you do. You wake up in the morning and you're with your friends. You're not by yourself, because they're gonna be there to like keep you honest and be like, listen, we all need to take a break. You're gonna eat breakfast. You're gonna watch your movie. You're gonna take a break and talk about it. Then you're gonna, eat lunch. You're gonna watch your other movie. You're to take a break and talk about it, and then you're gonna eat dinner and then watch your last movie, and then talk about it, and you're tired and you go to bed. Like, that's the way to do it. Spread it out over the whole day. Or you're going to say, like, yeah, weekend one is this, weekend two is this, weekend three is this, or day one is this, day two is this, day three is this. But don't do what I did and like watch TV for like 6 to 8 hours nonstop,
yeah.
where
If,
your head is
if
pounding
it's
and you
under an
just,
hour, two max.
yeah, like, yeah, and some of it's because I'm an old man, can't do it anymore. But I remember seeing Lord of the Rings in theaters and going like, okay, I know the movie's got like another hour and a half to go. I better not drink this whole like beverage I've got, because I'm gonna want to go to the bathroom, and my bladder is gonna be bursting for the last action sequence. I don't want to do that. So I'm gonna wait. I'm
Yeah,
gonna eat my popcorn, but I'm not gonna drink my drink until the clock strikes whatever, and now you can have your drink. Like, that's what I would do, and I wasn't like, middle aged at that time. So anyway, okay, so shifting gears, HeroQuest. So PulseCon is the 22nd, right? And it's all online. It's one day, I think. So,
Yeah, I believe so.
and they showed images, HeroQuest type artwork stuff in the trailer. So we pretty much guarantee they will have something prepared to show us. What do you think it's going to be? Any predictions? I mean, besides the Wandering Monk, which we know is coming out, and they've already showed us at Gen Con. Do you think they'll talk
I was
about
I
Against
was
the Ogre
thinking
Horde?
the Wandering Monk, but I was thinking there was going to be a little more like how like the whole introduction, kind of like the same like Rogue Heir of Ellithorn type.
Oh, the Stephen Baker
Hopefully,
commercial
like
with
trailer.
with the narration. He traveled
Yes.
he traveled far from eastern lands, training day after day. I'm trying to do a voice. And he learned the elements of earth, air, fire, and water in the struggle against dread. He is the wandering monk, Ta-da! Like, I'm trying to think of like what it would be, his village was
Right.
destroyed by the minions of Zargon. He vowed never to pick up a sword or, to wear armor until he had defeated all of his enemies in battle. Just like, yeah, that would be cool to see. So whatever they decide to put together for that little story, I'm looking
Right.
forward to
So
that.
like I'm hoping like
Maybe they'll
something
play
for
that.
that.
So maybe they'll play that and say, here it is. And then they show us the stuff we've already seen. Yeah, because what more could they show us about that character other than here's the release date? Well, they gave us the release date. They gave
Right.
us the price
Well,
point. We know what's in the box.
right, and maybe like that arena, and like maybe like I said, a little more on the map, or like you know what I
Yeah.
mean, where like
What is
it's
that? Yeah.
inside the animation, and right, kind of either it's there as part of it, or it somehow actually
Yeah.
is the final destination.
Yeah. Because
But
that
yeah,
that
definitely like that whole the whole like journey, like
the
not,
journey.
but not getting to the end, but just seeing a
Yeah.
glimpse of what's at the end.
Well, you know what I'm thinking of with this wandering monk thing? I'm gonna rewind the clock back to when we were talking. Oh, Verg. Hey, Elverg. He says against the ogre horde and prophecy of Telor. I'm inclined to think that's probably what's going to happen, but we'll see. Prophecy of Telor, it would seem like it's coming out like any minute now, so they have to talk about it. But yeah, will Against the Ogre Horde be explicitly announced? We'll find out. I hope so,
Either announced or that there's going to
or
be like
teased.
a hint at
Yeah,
the end.
they'll have
Yes,
another picture, another Photoshop picture of Craig Von Ness's shoulder, and then it on the shelf against the Ogre Horde, with the new art. Bookham Dano says,
right. Well, or that the monk himself ends up like coming, like you see like the back of the monk, and then
"I
you see
was,
him facing up against an ogre, like
I
a
was there when the
David
ogres,
versus Goliath situation.
yeah, the ogres destroyed my village. I'm back to warn you before they do it again." Dano says, "What if they did release an HeroQuest based turn-based RPG system?" I think I'll jump all over that. Well, yeah, that makes me think of like Advanced HeroQuest or something totally new. Elverg says, "I guess we may see Prophecy of Telor at Christmas and possibly Against the Ogre Horde by spring." Yeah. Well, the original leak was saying Against the Ogre Horde 2024. Not when, but just it happened. But they were saying the beginning of 2024 is the Wandering Monk. And so it was interesting that they revealed that as their big like product as opposed to Prophecy of Telor. But
Right, because that's
or
January, where the
Spirit
other
Queen's
one might be a
Torment.
later release.
Now, it kind of makes a little bit of sense because Prophecy of Telor and Spirit Queen's Torment are basically already created. Like they were already created when the Mythic stuff came out. Like we don't know what extras are going to be in the box, but for all we know, it's just the same miniatures and some fancy dice, which will be fine. Like people would buy that, I'd buy it. But okay, so they're going to spend their energy promoting the new thing, the brand new thing, the Wandering Monk. Against the Ogre Horde is more of an unknown quantity, and if it's coming out later, so later than January, there's maybe that's still stuff being worked on. Like I started a thread on Yield In, and I realized it's like, okay, I probably should have started this a year ago if I wanted to like influence them in any way. I'm sure they've already hammered out what they think it should be. And I think they don't need to be talking to me about it. They need to be talking to the European fans. Like, what did they like? What did they not like? What worked? What didn't? What fan mods have come out about that pack to adapt it to the new
Yeah,
system?
right.
Prophecy
And
Teller isn't really
my
much new to tell about.
adaption was D6.
Yeah, well, I've seen some of the things you guys have done with the ogres, and I think it's cool. I guess a lot of me wants to say, like, I hope they preserve a lot of the essence and spirit of the original, even if they're going to rewrite stuff,
Right.
even if they feel like I think after Frozen Horror came out, they felt emboldened to just go in and edit and change stuff because they knew that like fewer people are invested in it being exactly the same. You know, uh,
Yeah.
some good examples accepted. You know, Amalgam Ash makes a good point. Like I was proud of him for the fact that he would stump for the 10 body points. It's like there's fans out there that want that, and it's like he's giving them a voice. You know, with his platform. So I hear that,
Right.
and
The
I feel
same
like
right. And there's another faction that would want the
right.
variable hit point.
Right. But
Oh,
I would say, yeah, you know the hardcore fans are going to mod it to however they want to. But
yes.
you want to appeal to the most people, and it's like why make Against the Ogre Horde at all if you're not going to do that? Like if you're not going to create Against the Ogre Horde, just give us something else. Give us some other pack that is new. Like you can do that. So they could have just said, "Well, we're not going to give you Mage of the Mirror. We're going to give you Rise of the Dread Moon instead." But instead, they decided to give us Mage of the Mirror edited and then give us like a follow-up story that uses some similar elements in Rise of the Dread Moon. That was a good strategy. So against the Ogre Horde may lead into something else, but at
I
least
thought they
I
were going to have ogres in Rise. I really thought they were going to add a
really,
10
oh yeah,
point, like 10 body point big
oh
ogre.
yeah, like a
Yeah, like,
you
you know
kill
what I
them
mean?
all,
Like, I had
kill them
really
all.
thought, like, they were going to do that and that it was going to have more gray monsters, you know? And
Yeah,
like I said, I wanted an
a
all,
lot of us
the,
expected.
the sword shield sculpt of the Chaos Warrior. Like, I wanted all of that and was, you know what I mean? But
I was very
we
surprised.
got the Magus Guard instead. So, like, you know what I mean?
I
It
was
was
very
very
surprised.
different from what I had thought.
Very different from what I thought too. I mean, I was expecting much more along the lines of I thought the knight was going to be more integrated into it. I thought it was going to be more that formula, but they took it in
Yeah.
a bold new direction. And I don't think, I mean, we're going to be finding out because we're going to be playing that on Saturday. Um,
Well, I thought they would, like I said,
yeah.
I was hoping that there was like going to be a Sir Ragnar, or that they had showed us one night, and that there would be another night that
Yeah.
had no helmet that could be Sir Ragnar,
Yeah. We've
or
been through that.
Ragnar. You know what I mean? Like, I had thought about it that way. Like, you know,
Oh, yeah.
I was like,
Well, and I
it
don't
would
want
have
to,
been easy to have, you know. And I know that they were really only showing like, oh, there's only going to be one hero. It's going to be the knight. But I was still thinking, oh, okay. And then when there was, I'm like, well,
that
if
to
there is
me,
none, maybe there's a second knight in there.
yeah, that to me is Sir Ragnar. I mean, that's how I choose to deal it. Even though they're saying no, just a random Chaos Warrior figure is, or Dread Warrior is Sir Ragnar for that story. I so yeah, I have high hopes for Against the Ogre Horde. I think it will. I'm looking forward to seeing the people who said that. And sorry to single you guys out, but there's a couple people who were like, "There's no way they can adapt these European only expansions to the new system. Like it'll never work. Nobody will buy it." I think that's totally wrong, and I can't wait to see those people admit that they were wrong about it. I have faith in them that they
Yeah.
can do
Well,
it, and that it'll be great, and people will buy it, and it'll be fine. Like both people that never played it before and people who played it, like they have the ability. Like I have that much faith in them that they can do it, because it doesn't just have to be like what Phoenix did.
I think it can definitely be done.
Yeah, he just did pretty much a straight up conversion. If you just take Against the Ogre Horde and you don't even think about it, you just convert it to North American style rules. It doesn't necessarily work perfectly. There's a lot of anomalies that you have to work out, so it's not like impossibly difficult or like broken in the other direction. I laid
Right.
out in a thread on Yield and some of the things that I thought they could do, which is again, it's probably coming really late. Like they probably already thought of all those exact points already. Like
Right.
They could even go
And
backwards
we
with
used a
some of the
D6 for their body points, so it was random, but we didn't have to use
sure,
a tracker. And when you rolled
yeah,
the dice, you sat it next to them, and you didn't have to worry about the skull markers. You just flipped the die down to whatever.
and they don't have
And
to.
worst case scenario, it had 6 body points. Best
Yeah,
case scenario, that ogre only had 1.
it doesn't matter if when you think about it, like I've heard people say, well, no, 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 variable body points are too hard because now you got to keep track of all these rooms. That's not the case because as you and I both know, when we play HeroQuest, most of the time it's like one, maybe two rooms at a time. Like if you split the party, it's not that you have to memorize all the rooms on the quest map at once. It's just you're doing them one at a time. And so it's fairly easy for Zargon to keep track of that stuff. I mean, less randomly, you might have like one guy running through the quest, activating room after room after room. That's pretty rare. So yeah, if you're like
Right.
in this room, there's two ogres. This guy's got five. This guy's got one. And this next nearby room, there's two ogres, and one's got three, and one's got four. It's like okay,
Right.
that's easy to keep track of,
And
and you don't have to
each,
write on
each
the
one
quest
gets a
book.
die, and
Yeah, you don't have to write
that's
on the
how
quest.
I handle them all.
Yeah, you don't have to write on the quest book with a pen, and you don't have to necessarily have a D6 like on the table for each one. You can. There's other ways you can do it. Like I've just did an
Mm.
unboxing of Betrayal at House on the Hill, third edition. I didn't show you, but there's a tracker in that. It's just a piece of cardboard that has numbers on it, like a horizontal piece, and there's just a tile that you just move it along. So you're like, oh, he got hit, he goes down one. Like you could have something like that really easily. You could even have a small token that you put on the card. Like there's so many ways they could do it. It doesn't have to be a HeroClix style like dial that you put on the figure. Like there's so many ways they could do it,
Yeah.
and the only reason to do it is to make it so it's not just a big tank guy. Like the idea is you run into an ogre, and it's like, oh, he might be powerful, he might be not. So each room is a new encounter, a new adventure. Now you might say, well, but when you encounter a monster, don't you know how many body points they have? Not necessarily, because I know there's different ways the Zargons play. Some Zargons will say like, well, you're supposed to put out the monster cards. So, oh, you see an orc, you automatically know, okay, he's got 3 attack, 2 defend, 1 body. But when it's a named character, you don't have to tell him. So it's the Witch Lord. Well, how many body points does he have? Well, why don't you find out? Like you could tell him, but you don't have to. So by the same token, you meet an ogre and you're like, oh shoot, let's fight this guy. Oh, we got him. He's dead. Oh, well, he's not so tough. The next one, oh, this guy will be a pushover. Oh no, he didn't die. Shoot, how much has he got? Like you keep fighting. Well, you got to find out. Like that could be interesting.
Yeah.
Keep him guessing. It's like, oh, it's the ogre chieftain. Well, how many does he have? Well, he's got more than the regular guys. Okay, well, he's got at least 3. Okay, let's see what he got. Oh, he only had 4. Okay, we got him. Sure, why not? That could be an interesting mechanic. And I can see people saying, well, these ogres are different than the ogres in Mage of the Mirror. It's like, yeah, what of it? What's what's wrong with that? Excuse me. What's wrong with one expansion having a different interpretation of something? Like, are all the mercenaries and all the scenarios the same? No, they're not. They have different abilities, different stats. So just because they're an ogre doesn't mean they have to be the same as the Mage of the Mirror ogres. They could be. They could easily do that just to simplify things. I think that's the most boring solution, but I don't
Right.
necessarily think they have to do that, and I kind of hope they don't. Is what I'm trying to say.
Right, because then it wouldn't be like an ogre horde. It would be like the ogre like warriors that the elves are like paying to actually like
Yeah,
be an army, or
they're
mustering to be an army, where they're trained or fighting
they could be.
constantly to
Yeah,
be that way or whatever.
my
Versus
yeah my
you're not going to go and sit there and pay the same amount of money for some 1 body point ogre
yeah
slub that
I
just
hope that
happens
we
to grab a stick and jump into battle.
I hope that we can hire our own ogre mercenaries. I think that'd be cool. But my
Yes.
headcanon explanation. See, originally, I mean, they were not together. So Against the Ogre Horde was for the European players. Mage of the Mirror was for the North American players, and they were not combined. But now the communities are together. It's a global phenomenon, and now we're going to get both. So my headcanon back then, though, was to say Okay, well, you fought the ogre horde. Zargon or Morcar recruits Festral, the evil sorcerer, to go and like get the ogres who nobody thinks can be harnessed into a fighting force to work for Chaos. And he uses his magic, his influence to do that. He fails. He's defeated by the heroes, of course. And so what happens? Well, some you can either you do it one of two ways. One, you could say, well, there's some survivors. The ogre horde is defeated. There's some survivors. They wander around. Some of them become mercenaries. Sinestra recruits them into her army. That's one way.
Yep.
Another way was to say, well, why are they 10 body points instead of like, 3, 4, 5? Well, these are mutants. So she used her evil magic to like experiment on them, make them into like even stronger, like a mutant rancor. It's like, oh, shoot. You thought this guy was tough before. Now he's even more crazy. So they're like a special case. So just because you run into an ogre in one area doesn't mean it's the same. I mean, maybe it's a different like type of ogre or whatever. Just like there's different types of elves, there's different types of orcs. It wouldn't have to be the same. I don't know, whatever, the same exact type. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, because
So I can see that working.
the wizard and the
It's more like,
barbarian are both humans, but they're
yeah,
totally different.
yeah, exactly. And there's different dwarves, there's different elves. One thing I want to say, and I want to acknowledge the things that Verg is saying here first before I jump into my next big tirade. Um,
Go for it.
Good old Verg. So I like the abbreviations because Prophecy of Telor is POT and Crypt of Perpetual Darkness is COPD. It's like, okay.
Yes, that one makes me chuckle almost every time I type it.
It's like, do you want POT or do you want COPD? Wait, what? So Verg says, I want
It's,
them to do what's
one
best for the
causes
long.
the other.
Yeah, I want them to do what's best for the long term for the game in terms of adjusting difficulty or changes. Yeah, just like they gave us the barbarian and elf packs, which were super super hard, and then they went back and gave us a less hard Rise of the Dread Moon. It's like that's okay because you don't have to play them in a specific order. You just play them in whatever order you want. Verg says Mage of the Mirror, Frozen Horror would have likely benefited from changes. Yeah, they could have made more changes. I mean, Frozen Horror really had no changes. It was all after the fact in digital format. But I think it would have suffered much more criticism for the community for those changes. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not so sure that that would have been the case. I think you might say, though, that, I mean, Frozen Horror was so early in that release schedule that I think you had a lot of fans out there that had heard of the Frozen Horror but never played it that might have been like, wait a minute, they're changing it. Like, I want to play however it was back in the day. Like, I could have seen that attitude, but I think people became more knowledgeable, not because of me, but just people became more knowledgeable, like, because they were researching it and figuring it out. Like, oh, there are serious problems with the gameplay that makes it not fun, that people have changed. Like, when people play it, they change it usually. So if Avalon Hill had decided to change it right off out of the box, I think they would have had a good justification. And if they asked other fans, they would have like learned quickly, oh, that's why. And I think Avalon Hill realized that the fans were open to that after the fact when they did Into the Northlands. And so they felt a little more emboldened with Mage of the Mirror to make the changes in the box. And yes, you had a couple people, but other than Amalgamash complaining about the 10 body points, and I'm not picking on you, man. Ash is cool. Check him out, Ash Quest on YouTube. Other than that, I'd never heard any complaints. Anybody saying, oh, they shouldn't have changed the stuff. I mean, I guess I made fun of the Sovereign Sword. Like, it's still the Avenger to me. But I didn't say, oh, the whole quest pack is ruined now. Like, they shouldn't have done that. It's just like, yeah, it's Lunarium, it's Moonsilver, whatever. The changes weren't that bad. Most of the changes were positive. It was like you had an unmarked treasure chest. Now you're saying what's in it. Like, as you always should have. Like, that's the point. Like, having a treasure chest and no note at all is not the norm for HeroQuest. Like, it's got to have something, even if it's just a trap, and the chest is empty. Thanks, Bookham Dano. Thanks for joining us. I know we've gone over a little. We started late, and we've gone over, but thanks for joining us. I do really appreciate it. And I know that we talked over a lot of your comments, but we kind of got off on our own tangents. Verg says, I think we should let the idea of getting Sir Ragnar go and just be pleasantly surprised if he shows up again. I disagree because I think they want to do what the fans want. And if they sense that the fans don't care about something, they're not going to pursue it. So I'm not saying be a jerk about it, but you agitate for what you want and vote with your wallet. So I think they know the fans want Sir Ragnar and they're going to give us Sir Ragnar. Just the question is, when is it going to happen? They had an opportunity, they decided against it, and some of that stuff they know what they can do and when they're going to do it. Like make a lot more sense that if he returns again as an antagonist, that they would wish to include him in that expansion instead. The thing is, though, they could include an expansion where he's a good guy. Like, why couldn't they? That's in the realm of possibility. Who says that HeroQuest has to be the strict continuity where one quest pack follows another and there's no changes, there's no alternate things? Because every game is different. Every set of heroes is different. You can say there's one timeline, but why not have a one-off a side quest? I'd like to see his early adventures before he turned evil. There's different ways they could do that. Elberg says, I think the mistake was to reveal the art for Ragnar as the first official hint of things to come in Rise of the Dread Moon. That did set a certain expectation. And Carmine did a good job of explaining why they did that. But yeah, I think a lot of people got the idea that, oh, this is what the miniature is going to look like in the box, inside the box, not just on the outside. Elberg says that created a lot of expectations from the community, especially those who couldn't participate in HasLab of what was going to come. Yeah, I fully expected, hey, they're trying to appease those people. They're going to put a figure in the box. What were we going to say?
All right, so then I have to apologize to every single person out there then for that too, because I'm the one that asked him for like draft notes and artwork, that was for that quest, and that was
Oh,
what he gave us.
you were the one.
So I was
Shame.
just the one that asked, and
Shame.
he's the one that gave us, and that's what he gave us. And
No,
yes, it did set a little
Jacer,
expectations high, but so I apologize.
Jacer, you have nothing to apologize for. I am definitely the historian type person. Like, I want to see the failed, first draft of HeroQuest. I want to see Stephen Baker's rejected ideas. I want to see all that stuff. I want to see the stuff where Brian Ansell like stormed out of the room because he was like, "That's the stupidest idea ever." Like, I want to see that because I want to know.
Oh, so do I.
But
Look, you're
that's
right,
me.
and I don't mind. Right, if
I'm making
right,
that
if
up,
it
but
doesn't come like I said, I don't want to be, you
yeah,
know. But I think it's cool. I
yeah,
like
I
to
think
see
it's cool too.
design notes. I like to see that. I always like to see the art in comic books. I always like to
Yeah,
see the art in video games. And I love like the old like marker mock-ups, the
and you're not
alcohol
alone.
marker.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
you're not alone. You're not alone. There's a lot of people. I mean, you think about it, a big chunk of their loyal fan base, their paying customers, are these hardcore fans. Now, as time goes on, our influence is less and less because the larger community of people that are joining HeroQuest, either because they saw a meme on YouTube or because they, saw it at their friendly local game store or they heard about it some other way, they're joining in, so their opinion matters too. And some of those people just want to see the finished product. They don't necessarily care about all that stuff. Maybe they will later, but they want to see the game that they can take out of the box and play right now. With us, yeah, we want to see the concept art. So I think, yeah, the reason to show us the concept art does show us that they have ideas for Sir Ragnar for the future, not just like they didn't just whip it up just to appease you. I mean, I'm sure they
oh
haven't.
no, right, and that's what,
Yeah,
like you said, it was gonna be
you.
in. It went into the app, and it was like it was a computer
Yep,
thing that was going into
you.
the app, and it had a purpose, and
Yeah, it was in the
you
app.
know what I mean. We didn't
Yeah,
know what the purpose was,
you.
but they had it. It was already done,
Yeah, the
and they showed
things.
it, and they gave us a story to go with it, and things
Sorry,
to think about.
yeah, Strange Bus I think made a comment once about how like we're always trying to talk over each other, and it's always me getting super excited about what stuff you're saying. But you, Jacer, the stuff that you want is not just the stuff that you want. Like you represent a large number of fans that want to see that stuff. So when you say, I want to see the concept art, you're speaking for a lot of people when you say that. Just like when I'm speaking for a lot of people when I say XYZ, like there's other people out there, they're trying to appease the largest number of paying customers that they can. They're not going to be able to make everybody happy, but yeah, it all fits together into that. So back to Verg's comments here. Um, he says the ogre horde are a specific faction or group that Festral takes over. Yeah, it's not like he necessarily rules over all ogres that ever existed in the old world or whatever this is. So it's not like all ogres are in Zargon's control. Yes. Yeah, and just like with the thing, they said, well, not all orcs, not all orcs, just the ones that are in Zargon's team are the jerks. Right. There's other ones. Yeah, we totally need ogre mercs for Wizards of Zargon. And he says, well, if you remember, and Carmine talked about how cautious they were in making the ogre change from Mage of the Mirror. Yeah. Yeah, they weren't just making fun of Ash. They really did take that into consideration. So again, he was voicing something that more than one fan cared about, and they took it seriously. And the feedback for that change seems to help them move forward with making more changes. Exactly. So I would say if you have feedback about the game, just say it. Like, unless you're just purely trolling, like you don't even care. Speaking of trolls, where are they? I mean, trolls are in HeroQuest according to White Dwarf. But yeah, I would just say it, because this is not a franchise where it's so sacred that you need to just shut your mouth if you don't have anything good to say. Say it, because chances are you're not the only person that thinks that way. They're going to hear that feedback, and that's going to affect how they move forward. So they hear the people that want new stuff, they hear the people that want old stuff, they hear the people that want things kept the same, they hear the people that want stuff changed. And they're going to try to like make the best compromise they can with their budget. So yes, Verg, I do remember, and I think you're right to bring that forward. So thank you for bringing that up. So against the ogre horde, yeah, there's a lot of things they could do to make it, I guess, up to snuff. I mean, the biggest thing I got from those interviews is that Chris Nato and Carmine, he had this vision through Avalon Hill of they want to be able to deliver these packages where every time a new expansion comes out, you have a certain level of expectation of assets in the box. Like you're going to open it up, and yeah, it's not always going to be the same stuff, but you're going to feel like there's enough plastic and cardboard and new adventures in here that it's the same value. So which is kind of a tall order, because I feel like those quests were so long in Frozen Horror and Mage of the Mirror that it's like, okay, this is a year's worth of adventures in this box. So is it the same for Rise of the Dread Moon? Well, I guess we'll find out. I have a feeling it's going to be a lot less, but the
Right.
rules in there are,
Well, and if they're releasing it every 6 months, then you would
yeah,
think that they're planning on it being about 6 months worth of adventures. But if you did
yeah.
it monthly, it could be 10 months,
Well,
so
and I
that
noticed,
the next one's there before you finish
yeah,
the,
yeah.
the last one.
If you were playing in that way, but people are going to join the franchise late and be like, oh man, I have to play all these. No, you don't have to. You just pick the ones you want. Play the trial like 20 times. It doesn't matter. But excuse me. Yeah, I'm starting to lose my voice here. Sorry. Yeah, there's a lot of content, and it, I think for me, what I was looking at Rise of the Dread Moon. I mean, we'll find out. It looks like the adventures are maybe a little shorter, a little easier, but it looks like the new rules allow you to maybe, like, you could replay those quests and do it a different way. Like you could use your reputation tokens a different way. It's like, okay, well, we charged in last time. This time let's try to sneak around more. Or, we didn't find the hideout right away, so we had more of a problem. Or, oh, maybe we'll get better alchemy stuff this time. Like there's different ways that it could go. So I could see people maybe going back and replaying or making their making new adventures based on Rise of the Dread Moon. Whereas with Mage of the Mirror and Frozen Horror, like I felt like I was done. Like by the end, I'm like, well, maybe it would have been cool to fight the frozen horror one more time so you could use some more spells because I felt like I didn't use them tactically as well as maybe I could have. But that's just, but the rest of it is like, how many more like 4 hour, 8 hour quests do I need of just slogging through frozen, the same monsters over and over? It's like, I don't know if I want to do that again for a while. Like, I'm okay moving on. I think it's
Yeah.
okay. It's like with video games. Like it's okay to have like a short video game that's super fun that you'd play again and again versus one that's like so long and grindy that by the end you're just like I'm sick of it. I don't want any more of this like for 10 more years. Just I want to forget about it. Like I think I'd prefer the first option. Like, oh, this is fun. It's a nice bite-sized cool adventure. Come back to it. And then it'll tide you over until the next thing comes out that strikes your fancy. Okay, so I want to say one thing about this. So against the Ogre Horde, I think yeah, it's quite possible that they'll tease that. I hope they do. I hope they just acknowledge it and just say, you know what, you may have heard this. Here's the release schedule. Here's a short little preview for each one. Understanding that okay, maybe this one is 100% done. This one's 90% done. This one's like 25% done, and just open up that conversation because if they're being totally quiet about against the Ogre Horde and it's finished, they must be super confident that they've made the right decision. But if they're still like iffy on any of that stuff, like I kind of want to hear about it. Like, are they going to do a play test and say, well, we have this one ogre mechanic and this other one. Let's see what fans think. I mean, it's okay if they surprise us. I mean, if they're very, very confident that they've come up with the right answer that's going to please the most people and they just bring it out and it's done, great. But I feel like with some of the other packs, they have released little pieces, little bits and pieces. Like before they ever gave us all that stuff leading up to the release of Rise of the Dread Moon, I mean, they told us about the specters. So there was all that speculation and stuff about it ahead of time. I mean, with the HasLab stuff, they gave us the playtest for the new heroes, and that didn't really. I mean, those characters really didn't go anywhere because they were just kind of like add-ons. They were just kind of like tacked on, like if you wanted to use them. And those will eventually be coming out. So what are we going to hear about those? So there's a lot of like ifs, but I'm surprised we haven't heard anything about Spirit Queen's Torment. Like I'm kind of curious like what's going to happen with that. So
Well, that might become.
yeah,
Yeah,
if I had to guess, I
I
mean
can always have to go.
yeah, I would hope my hope is that they just lay it all out. They just do the whole release schedule. Like here's the next year of releases. If they don't do that, I predict that they will talk about Prophecy of Talor, Spirit Queen's Torment, and then, as they've already done, they'll
Well, yeah,
continue to promote the Wandering Monk. I don't know if they'll get to against the Ogre Horde. If they get to it at all, it's just going to be a tease. I hope I'm wrong about that. I hope they actually do talk more about it. Like, oh yeah, here's one of the ogre miniatures right here, like something like that.
I think that we're gonna get like. I'm hoping it's gonna be two things, and like I said,
Two
Wandering
things.
Monk is probably gonna be one of them,
Yeah,
and
I
they
feel like they've already
might
talked so
push
much
the
about it
other one back for like the next
for
big
next year.
convention of next summer because
Yeah.
it'll be coming out for whatever comes out next
Well,
winter or next
yeah,
later in.
there's got to be something else in between because yeah, if they wait until next uh, August, it's like all this stuff's going to be out already. And if they wait until September, you know what I mean? Like, so I know that there are these
Yeah,
European conventions in between, and we've come to expect it's like it's not always the same thing. Like one country gets an exclusive before somebody else, that's fine.
right.
So it's
Well,
like
even if it's like earlier, like
Essen,
Adepticon
yeah.
or something
So
earlier in.
Essen is going on in Germany, so we got to check and
Yeah,
see what happens with that. Like maybe Dungeon Master
and
is going
that's
to come back.
October, right?
Yeah,
Is that next
yeah.
month?
So
Okay.
yeah, October. I was thinking Oktoberfest, but no, that's something else. But yeah, so maybe Dungeon Master will come back and say, "Oh, Ogre Horde," like, "Ah, ha, ha." Now we know, and then we'll
Right, and
find
that
out
would be
later.
the place that I would want to announce the Ogre Horde is somewhere
The
in
German
Europe.
HeroQuest fans, I mean, they got
They would go
Frozen
nuts.
Horror for
I
four
think it would be
months.
awesome.
They had the Frozen Horror for 4 months in PDF format, and I'm
Oh
sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think they still have it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they had it the whole time, but I'm just saying it was funny because yeah, on the Hasbro customer care it says Frozen Horror English. You click on it and it's a German version, and it was up there for 4 months
Yeah.
before they finally put up the English. It was just funny. It was just like, oh man, they love the Germans so much more than the Americans and Britons, the Britons.
But yeah, that's
Yeah.
where, like, if it was my call, that's where I would announce the Ogre Horde would be there, and I would do, like,
Yeah. Well,
Wandering
it was.
Monk and maybe Spirit Queen Torment
Yeah.
at PulseCon.
Sure. Yeah. So we'll either hear about some of them or we'll
Or
hear about all of
probably
them. But
tell,
But
yeah,
I was just a little surprised that they jumped ahead to what was happening in January. But it makes some sense because out of that cluster, the new content was Wandering Monk. I mean, Prophecy of Telor, Spirit Queen's Torment were from the Mythic tier, and people are going to want to hear about that because people who missed out, who are still trying to buy it on eBay for ridiculous prices, are going to want to know when they can get those. You know, improved, but more or less what they were expecting. And Against the Ogre Horde is a known quantity in the sense that it's from the classic era. We just don't know what changes they're making to update it to the new standard, you know.
yeah,
And yeah, it'll be much more interest to the European players for that sense. At the same time, though, I mean, look at all the stuff they did in Italy to promote Frozen Horror, which was a pack that they didn't get back then. It's like, oh, they need to promote extra, put extra attention to it to say, hey, this is why you should care about this one, even though it was, something those foreigners got. By the same token, they might try to sell Against the Ogre Horde to us, but yeah, they might do more interaction with the fans. Like that would make sense too to say, hey, you are the guys that taught us what was wrong with this pack, that we would update it, using your feedback to this new standard.
yeah.
So it could go both ways.
I hope they add a quest in the beginning of it. Like,
Yeah,
even I want it to be a quest where you go and
end
actually have to
quests.
gather all those potions. Okay.
Oh, the
Well,
five
like I said,
potion
I'd like
quest.
to gather the.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd like
that
you
could
to
be a way.
go on a quest where you gather them all
That could be interesting. It's like, oh man,
before you
we
go in.
we lost three
You
heroes
get
on this
3 quests to
adventure.
shop and
Just think, we
stock
lost
up, and then you got to go.
we lost three heroes on this quest to get this healing potion. Earn it, earn it. It's like, dang it, no, no. But yeah, I was thinking about. I mean, there's so many ways that they could work that out. Like I know there was a lot of confusion about that mechanic. I just want to say this, and I know it's in the thread, and other people have already talked about this, but Against the Ogre Horde was using a fan idea actually as an optional rule. So there are some people who played Keller's Keep in the following way. The way the rules
Yeah,
say is between every quest, not only do your body points and your mind points come back and you get your spells recharged and you can change your spells and you can go shopping at the armory for new stuff or shopping with the equipment cards, whatever, because there was no alchemist shop in the European stuff. But what a lot of players did, I didn't do this, but a lot of people did this, is said, well, you're underground the whole time. So are you like leaving the caverns and going back to town to buy stuff and then going back in? Like that doesn't make sense. So they were saying between quests you can't buy anything. And I know there's people that would say, well, maybe there was a wandering peddler that sold you this stuff, or you teleported through magically back to town, or there was a magical vending machine. Like, but they were trying to say, okay, well, we'll keep all the quests as a series. And so Against the Ogre Horde was saying, well, you can play it that way where you don't go shopping. Yes, your body points and everything comes back, but you can't change your spells once you pick them that you set in stone. But to make it easier to play from quest to quest to quest without any rest to like buy stuff, even though in the European rules you couldn't buy potions because you know, there was no alchemist shop like the North American, they gave you these large potions. So there's every hero got 5 potions of healing, and these potions of healing would restore all your body points to their maximum, not mind points, because your mind points would come back automatically between quests. Because they're saying if you'd lost all your mind points, you would become unconscious, not dead, unconscious. So if even one hero completes the quest, everybody else is quote unquote alive again, awake again for the next quest. Whereas in the North American, you're always thinking, well, they got to take potions to bring their mind points back to bring them out of shock, because that's how the North American versions handled mind points. Although I guess you could say Keller's Keep, you lose all your mind points, you're dead. Return of the Witch Lord, you lose all your mind points, you're unconscious. So they handle it differently. But the big potions were kind of cool because in the North American version, you have the death saves. So if your character goes to 0 body points, instead of just dying, which is what happens in the original version, you can instantly use that potion to save yourself. So these 5 potions are going to be like having like 5 extra lives. So that seems like a lot. But yeah, maybe if they did write quests where you had to earn them, that could be interesting. And I mean, I would have dismissed out of hand the idea of using tokens and earning tokens and stuff before Rise of the Dread Moon. But Rise of the Dread Moon did a lot of stuff with tokens. So you've got those reputation tokens, you've got the lunar charms or whatever, lunar amulets. So they've used it and nobody's objected. People seem to like it. So they could do something like that
Yeah,
again. Maybe if yeah, it's different. So maybe you skip those quests so you don't have those bonuses. But the people who want to play without shopping, I mean, you could say at this, let's say the heroes have played all the 14 quests already. Maybe they've even played Keller's Keep, Return of the Witch Lord already.
and they're already stocked up,
Yeah,
and they can just jump right in at Quest 4 and
they bought
and blast through
everything.
them all. Go
Yeah,
for it.
they bought
But
everything they
I've
could
done
possibly
Keller's
want.
Keep both ways too.
You've played it that
You're
way.
stocked up.
Yeah.
Yes, if you're
Well,
stocked up and all your heroes survived and you're fully stocked,
yeah,
then you go shopping. You get to buy up to those 4 potions, any other gear you want,
yeah.
and you run through it.
You have to.
And it's a gauntlet, but
It can
you're
work.
getting stuff. You have to trying to get as you go through it, and right, you can make it through. Now, if you're starting with new heroes, then I suggest that you're doing the whole thing. You're going in there, you're
Yeah.
getting your stuff, and yeah, there's either
Well,
somewhere that you're taking a break, or you're finding a shop, or
well, and
however it is. But it does seem like narratively, it doesn't make as much sense.
mhm,
But yeah, all right. Or you have an entourage, so
yeah.
you're like
Well,
here,
and let
and
me
you're paying the
remind,
people to stay with you and give you stuff.
yeah, and let me remind people listening. So there's a lot of like assumptions that people have, but also think back to what the rules say and what the rules don't say. As in Carmine said it to me one time. It doesn't say that the mercenaries can't use equipment in this particular pack. So maybe they can. Uh, it doesn't say that when a hero dies, like for good, like he's got no potions, no healing spells, no elixir of life, he dies, he's dead, right? It doesn't say he's gone forever, like that slot is permanently erased. So if your barbarian is dead in quest 3, what happens in quest 4? According to the basic rules, another barbarian comes in. You just give him a new name. He's just got his base equipment, and that's how it goes. Now,
Yep.
I think one person complained and said, "Well, the original the against the Ogre Horde text says that Mentor magically teleports a new hero to join the party." And someone didn't like that. It's like, but why? I mean, are you saying like, oh, Mentor's got some explaining to do? He should have teleported an entire army in there to win the battle. You can make up whatever excuse you want for why it works that way. You know,
Right. He's got enough power to teleport
yeah,
one
he
person,
can't
not an entire
interfere, or
army. And
he can't interfere, or the balance of fate will be upset and destroy the multiverse, or whatever. He can only make a portal this big, and he's gonna have a heart attack and die if he does any more than that. Or the guy
yeah,
shows up and it's like, man,
right.
do you know how many days it took me to finally get here? Like, I came as quickly as I
Yeah,
could, but man, you know, thanks for piling up all those dead bodies I had to hurdle to get here. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's a game at the end of the day. Like when we played and we were in Keller's Keep, we didn't think about how am I shopping. You just are. Like I was playing the Lord of the Rings War in the North game, and you're running around, through Middle Earth fighting, and then all of a sudden there's this just big glowing orb, and you walk up to it and you just start buying stuff. Like who are you buying it from? Who cares? It just is. You want to buy stuff, you can buy stuff. And if you're playing and
yeah,
you want to be more realistic and role play and you don't want to do that, don't go to the shop. walk on by. Like you can do that too. You can just play with the gear you've got. So I think giving the players a basic campaign that's like playable that most people can get through. I mean, it'll be challenging, but most people can get through. That's great. And then if you give people some options, some official options, that makes them feel like, oh, I'm still completing the challenge that Avalon Hill gave me, and I'm still a cool person for doing that. But you still, in the end, you've given people assets that they can use to then springboard into their own game. So if they want to be like Jacer or Jacer's dad and just make something up that's not written on there and maybe doesn't make sense except in your own imagination, have at it. No one can tell you otherwise. But I think for the general player, it does make the most sense for them to say, okay, well, you can play it like this hard mode where you don't get to shop, even though you have everything, and then easier mode
Right.
where you get, you know, you can go back and shop.
I wouldn't even call it easy. I would just call it
Compensation,
normal, and then do like the
special
hard.
challenge.
You know.
It's easier and it's harder in different ways because in the North American ones, yeah, if in Rise of the Dread Moon, they didn't let you buy stuff from every alchemist shop like they did in Frozen Horror and Mage of the Mirror. So it's not like you can just say, okay, well, I need to buy 10 healing potions and then I'm good. Like, I feel like Rise of the Dread Moon was trying to appeal to that section of fandom who doesn't want to be able to shop in between because they feel it's more realistic or more challenging. But they gave you the hideout, which is like a compromise. And it's more like a storyline way to explain while you're shopping in the midst of enemy territory. I mean, they didn't give you everything. They still gave you like, okay, you can restore your body and mind points, but it's the roll of a d6. So rather than automatically giving you all your points back, they're saying, well, you can give some of your points back if you're lucky. And you can buy stuff, but you can't buy everything. You can buy a lot of stuff, but it's still better to have that rest break in between quests. So when you do get that, you're like, oh, phew, I can totally get everything back. And it's like, well, you're in enemy territory now, so you can get some of the things that you need. You can get something of a
Right.
resupply. So maybe they'll do something
Yeah.
like that. Maybe they'll do something like that in this one. But I don't think they would have to do that. They wouldn't have to recreate all that stuff in Rise of the Dread Moon, but maybe they'll implement something like that. I mean, maybe it'll be more of a rewrite than just straight up, well, here's the 7 quests, and then there's some padding at the beginning and some padding at the end with new adventures. Maybe it'll be like
Right.
the loose concepts of the old quests expanded into the 10 quests that they're
Right. Or
going
instead
for.
of a hideout, it could be like the hero's camp.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be something different, but the same idea of, well, it's in the midst of the quest, I'm buying stuff and getting resupplied in a more storyline friendly kind of way, rather than just, oh, everything stops. I'm in this meta game. Because to me, shopping is just as much a part of the game as fighting the monsters. But for a lot of people, it's like the game has stopped and I'm just adding up my points. And and then once the next quest starts, now the game is starting again. Like I don't see it
Right.
as part of the preparation, but you could make the shopping phase feel more gamey if you wanted, or more RPG like. Like you could, well, maybe you haggle with
Oh,
the shop
useful.
owner, or somebody wanders in
Yeah.
and starts a fight, and you beat the guy
I,
up, and the shop owner's like, "Oh, thank you for saving my store. Hey, you want a discount? I got some. Oh, you know what? I didn't show you everything. Let me show you some stuff in the back room that just came in. Like, get you a good deal. Like that. You could incorporate a storyline, and some players do that into the shopping
yes.
phase.
I could pull up one of the shops and off of my Excel. So you want popular potions? Here you go.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I'll pop that one up. This is the shop that you're in.
Oh, you don't
Yeah,
quite
this is
have
what's
enough gold.
available in this one.
You don't have quite enough gold to
Right.
afford this,
Oh,
but these guys in the back are playing some cards. You want to join in on that game? Maybe you could win a little bit of gold and call it good.
yeah. Or you can go on like a delivery quest where you deliver an item for the shop owner,
Yeah,
and
so you
then I
can
got like
same thing for me.
right. There's like an escort thing. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So like yeah, I have these different things, and you can do each one like one time in between quests.
Because
You know, like
Zargon
and you
could
can go
just
and do a shop. So you can go up to, like, if there's 4 heroes, you can stop it up to 4 shops. You know what I mean? And
Sure. Yeah, that's a
it's
good
not going to
idea.
be the same shop. But I have, like, you might go to the Foundry, or
Yeah.
like in the Elf One or whatever. I have like a makeshift forge. So there's only a couple things that are available,
Oh yeah.
and what they can do for you.
I always think
Versus
of
like you go to the Borderlands Armory and they got a general selection of all these weapons, or
so
you
you
know what I mean. But they
actually
only got a limited amount of armor.
Jacer, I feel like you actually map it out. Like a lot of that stuff, I think of it in my mind, like this would be a cool idea, and then I just don't do it. Whereas you actually like take it
Yeah.
step further and saying,
Which
"Oh, these
all right.
mechanics." I think we got to move on. We're kind of going over time here, but I was just gonna say with the shop stuff, you could definitely incorporate it into storyline more. But you're giving the people a reason why it makes sense within the world to make it more fun because you could just Zargon could just throw down and say, "Here, you have this gear now." Like he could just do that and say, "Oh, well, now you have this amount." But you're saying, "Okay, I earned the gold. Now I can spend the gold." And it's like it's a fun way to acquire the stuff rather than just it's just handed to you. You just automatically have it. But some people prefer that. They want it simplified. Just say, "Oh yeah, just give my character the stats and stuff that he needs for the next adventure." Like I don't want to do that. It's like, "No, I want to
Right.
sign each point exactly where it goes, and I don't care if it takes me an extra half hour before the quest begins. Like I want to tweak everything exactly." It's like that's fun for them.
Yeah. And my haggling is like just a use for the mind points. You want to
Yeah.
haggle for something?
Potion
Fine. You roll
charm.
1d6. You have 1d6 for every mind point you have,
Yeah.
so the wizard can get up to 24 gold off of something.
Yeah. Or
And
like
if he gets 24 gold off on the dagger and then buys a dagger for 1 gold, he can never shop there again. And that's it. That's the only consequence. But like I said, everybody else can haggle. You know what I mean? But that prevents
Mhm.
I'm going to keep trying to buy these daggers and get
Yeah.
anything that I get for under 12 gold. I'm making gold, so they're not just using it as a money thing. Like, nope, you bought the dagger. And you start the next quest with 1 body point damage because he stabs you with it to give it to you for the 1 gold.
But see, whatever
So, that, like,
system they use in this new pack, somebody's gonna say, "Well, I can do better," and they're gonna implement their own thing. And I appreciate the general attitude that they've stated many times, and not just in Carmine, but like Tess said it too. Like lots of people said, we deliberately leave gaps in the system, and we deliberately don't explain everything because we know people are going to take it anyway and change it, and it's not an excuse like, oh, we just couldn't be bothered to like fill in that hole. It's like, no, we left it there because we know that there's so many wonderful possibilities and we want to see what people do with it. We'll give you just enough to get you through it, but there's a little opening here where you're encouraged to fill it in yourself, sponsor that creativity. Okay, so Alberg says, I had the idea that Keller's Keep had a central location that you cleared out in the beginning. And as you search for the 4 map parts, you're returning to a central base between quests that's been established. A thought to a limited amount of items for purchase and such. Sure, that works too. I was thinking of the Frozen Horror. With the Frozen Horror, each of those quests, I mean, except for the two-parter at the end where you are really stuck, they all say something like, "Oh yeah, nearby villages," or the entrance to some other cave. So it's always phrased as if they're telling you, "Yeah, you could easily leave here and go shopping and then come back." So it's almost like they were thinking of that. They were thinking of, well, if we set this adventure deep underground, people are going to ask, well, does this mean I can't, buy all this cool stuff anymore in between quests? I mean, you gave me this cool alchemist shop and I can't shop there, So yeah, they're thinking of that. So I think when they do the ogre horde thing, there's a couple of different ways they can go, and I think people who require more of a storyline explanation are going to be fine. I think they will cater to that, and people who don't have a problem with it will be fine either way. So gameplay wise, it's like, yeah, either you will be able to take breaks or you won't, but you'll get compensated another way. So I want to say something about the Wandering Monk. So, and this will probably be our closing thought. Uh, and I want to go back to the Rogue. So with the Rogue Heir of Elithorn, that hero collection had a story card, which I thought they were going to do more with. I mean, they made a big deal of the fact that like he's the heir in the Elven Kingdom, so he is the, correct me on this, Jacer, the male and the female, whether you take it as the same character in just different modes or they're both like siblings, they are they the son and daughter of um, Torellia, or are they the niece and nephew? Do you recall?
I honestly I don't remember.
I'd have to dig it out, but there's some family relation, and it's like a setup. It's like a perfect setup because Mage of the Mirror hadn't come out yet, the remake. And I was thinking, oh, this character is going to figure prominently. And when we first saw Rise of the Dread Moon, I thought maybe those were rogues. Turned out they were the
I'm gonna
paladins.
right, and I'm gonna say that
Yeah.
they are.
Want to
I
dig it
want
up?
to say that it's like a niece and a nephew
Yeah. Because
because they're rescuing the princess.
she's the
You
niece.
know what I mean? So then,
She's the
and they're
niece.
not titled. I don't think they're specifically titled as prince and princess, just
Oh.
as heirs, so that
Okay.
they're
You know
somewhere
what,
in the
Jacer?
royal bloodline.
Let me just grab it.
Yes,
Hold on, I'm just gonna get it. Just a minute. Okay. Your Royal Highness, as the bravest warriors, heir to the kingdom of Elithorn, critical, made aware, blah blah blah. Your mother, Queen Torellia. Okay, so the son and the daughter of Queen Torellia are the rogues. And again, it doesn't say that necessarily the male and the female both actually exist, or it's just you picking who you want to look like. But you could take it as that. Now, I was looking at the draft notes, which you might be interested in at some point, Jacer, for Catherine Connors' um, Mage of the Mirror, like the original draft notes. They specifically say that the Elven Kingdom is a matriarchy. So you'd think, okay, so the female rogue is like the canonical one.
right.
But you could say
But
maybe
then, like,
the
she
male
kind of sees
one,
that she's
like he didn't get to inherit because he was male. Maybe that's what it
right.
is. But in the new continuity, they don't say it's a matriarchy. So you can make up whatever you wanted about it. If you want to believe that his story is canon, it is. But I was expecting that he would be incorporated into the new story, and he wasn't. Like, if you never bought this Rogue Heir of Elithorn box and you played Mage of the Mirror and Rise of the Dread Moon, you'd have no idea. Like, I don't think they're ever mentioned. It's like, oh yeah, there's rogues out there. Okay, well, is there an heir somewhere? Like in the draft notes, they talk about there's like other family members that get killed that are out there, and it's like the family is like really big. Like it's a civil war, so it's I Claudius again. So you've got family members killing each other. You got kids getting caught in the crossfire. It's really dark, and they edited some of that out for the released version to make it a little more happy-go-lucky, adventure-y, and not super dark and grim. But I'm wondering if this stuff with the Wandering Monk is going to be similar to the Rogue, and that they're going to talk about, oh yeah, there's this tournament where he's wandering around the world and fighting all these battles and going into arenas and challenging ogres, but then they never make any quest that is the payoff. That is just a tease for you to make up your own stuff, because we never hear about the Rogue's adventures. We just know he exists and he could have adventures, but it's all up to you to create those. You know what I mean? Or with the knight, like the guardian knight, like where was the knight's adventures? He's in the Rise of the Dread Moon, but there's no direction on how to use him. So it's optional. So on the one hand, I want to see the arena, and I want to see the rules for the arena, and I want to hear about the tournaments, and I want to see the quests where the wandering monk goes on his tournaments. But for all I know, and all I should expect is that doesn't exist. That's just them trying to inspire us to create that on our own. What do you think about that, Jacer? Do you think they're just trying to inspire us, or do you think that they're actually going to create something that is like the fulfillment of all
Well,
those teases?
well, I think it does a little of both because it gives you the whole thing, like I said, that they're in air, like, but not exactly how they're tied in, and that you have this whole Elven Civil War. So you could either make them be part of it, where they, you don't even know what side they're on, as they're, because, and they are rogues, so you can even play it that way,
Maybe he becomes a
where it is
farmer.
that tease.
Maybe he's not going to reclaim his legacy ever. Maybe he just joins the circus.
Could be, or maybe that he becomes the hero of the Elven Kingdom in the end, and they
Yeah,
choose one of the rogues over the princess to succeed the line.
yeah,
Or maybe they become a steward
yep.
until she's of age. You
There,
know what I mean? I think
there's a lot of
they
ways
leave
to
it
do it.
open, like I said, for you to run your quest the way
So you
want
think,
to see them end.
so you think it's more of a an opening, kind of like how we never got the Skullmar quest pack. It was just he's out there, he escaped, go get him. Inviting you to create the quest if you want to, where that all happened.
Right, right, or that he's going to show up later
Yeah, because yeah,
for some reason.
eventually, yeah, maybe 5 years from now, they're like, man, we've just exhausted all the ideas. Let's get that rogue quest pack going. Let's get that wandering monk quest pack that everybody wanted. Like here it is. Of course,
I
maybe by
I
then.
shared a PDF with you with some shops, and
Oh,
like
thanks.
it's the I want to say it's not like full, but at one point I did print some of them out, so like some of them are printable,
We'll
but they
have
need to
to,
be adjusted. But it's just a PDF. But if you want, you can even bring it up on the thing on your screen because I'm not sure how to share my screen.
Jacer.
I did
I
figure
want
out how to
to.
do the camera.
Yeah, I want to, Jacer, but I'm gonna save it for the next stream. I think we're gonna have time before Friday or Saturday, before the game. We can actually like go over it because I'm getting tired, and I need to wrap this up. But I really enjoyed it, and thank you for
Okay.
sharing. I will take a look at it. It's just that we're not gonna cover it on the show tonight. Sorry.
But yeah, there was like one
Thank you.
theme shop for each expansion that has like their
Cool.
potions in it. And
Yeah.
then there was
Did you
like
send
a
it to my
couple other
Discord?
ones.
Did you send
No,
it to
I
my
put it right
Discord?
on this one. It's
Oh,
on
oh.
Quest
Um,
Talk.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Let me switch to your camera.
On the uh
I can't see
in
it.
the comments
Oh, in
or
the comments?
Quest Talk for Twitch where we roll the dice.
I'm not seeing it. I just see Minions was funny.
It'd be right under that as a PDF.
Yeah, I'm not
Uh
seeing it. I'm not seeing it. Why don't you send it to my email? Can you email it to me?
uh
I'll uh I'll just IM you my email. You can send it. That's probably the easiest. There might be like a limit on file size or something, and that's why we're not seeing it.
I is it
Yeah.
the
I just
message?
I just IM'd you my email. You can send it to me when you get a chance. So, okay, I'm just going to comment on these last comments here. So yeah, I think definitely PulseCon will be their opportunity to show off, and they probably won't tell us everything, even though I hope they will.
Only 2 megabytes.
2 megabytes. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Um,
Okay.
if it's just a direct file as opposed to like a Google Doc or not a Google Doc, Dropbox or something like that. I mean, heck,
Oh, yeah, I couldn't tell you.
you could send it to me on Yield In, but it would be easier to just email it. Okay, so
All right.
Elberg says, I find it funny that the elf is hugging the queen and princess and not the rogue in the Rise of the Dread Moon video. Well, if you knew what had taken place between the elf and the rogue, you wouldn't be surprised. No, I'm kidding. It's like you just make it up. I take it that the background story to the characters are optional for those who wish to provide a background for their character. I totally agree. Yeah. When they showed the Guardian Knight, like he gave Stephen Baker's narration. He gives a very specific story of a specific guardian knight and like what happened to her. But they show a picture of like a huge crowd of knights. And I want to acknowledge that one of them is blind, and there's at least one orc in there. So I guess Nightbird and I are canon, among other people. I mean, we don't know other members of the community may be cited in there as well. I thought there was a strong resemblance between a certain character in Rise of the Dread Moon and a certain Avalon Bill, but he denies it. We'll see. Anyway, so yeah, optional for those who wish to provide a background to their character. I agree. Elberg says, but Avalon Hill, as they've stated, aren't going to fill in the blanks for the character story. The Barbarian and the Elf only story that was incorporated was the solo quests only. Agreed. After that, it's a group story, and it doesn't seem like they're going to go that direction with the monk, just as they didn't with the Guardian Knight and Rogue. I'm saying at some future point, they could always give us a Rogue quest pack if they wanted, or a Wandering Monk quest pack. They could do that. So far, they have chosen just these one-off new heroes to kind of like put them off to the side and say like, yeah, if you want to bring this guy in, sky's the limit. It's right for you to use your imagination to incorporate him in however you want to. I mean, Spirit Queen's Torment incorporates the Bard, the Orc Bard. So that would be if, when, not if, but when they re-release that, that would be an introduction to the community of one way to incorporate one of these new heroes. I mean, some people would say it wasn't that great. It was just like, oh, if somebody dies, like they get to be the Bard. Okay, unless he's already in the party. But other than that, yeah, it's like they don't really give you direction. You just use them or don't, depending on how you want to. I've used them as a fifth hero. I don't mind. I mean, if the quests are tough enough that you could hire 12 mercenaries, I mean, you can incorporate one extra hero easily. Elberg says the arena is all flavor tie-ins to Against the Ogre Horde to expand it a bit bigger. Could be. You can see the sword and the trail of blood tile from the actual game in the arena artwork. Yes, that concept artwork, because people kept talking about the concept artwork. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was at the convention. It's just a model. Like, there's no concept art. But then they were saying, no, 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 it's on Facebook. And so I checked that out. And yes, the author, uh, I forget now, he had the concept art and he created the model based on it. I think it was the same person. But yeah, if you look at the concept art, the drawings, the paintings, whatever, the sketches of the arena, it shows the same symbol that you see on the Ogre Throne. And yes, you also see there's a tile in Against the Ogre Horde, which is like the floor of a dungeon, and it has like some weapons laying on the ground and like blood splatters. And you see a picture like that in the arena. So it's clearly like hinting it's Against the Ogre Horde. And they put the ogres down in the arena in one of the displays at Gen Con to say, hey, it's going to happen. So yes, they're just playing coy, saying, what are you talking about? We already know that it's coming out via the store leak. But yes, they're obviously trying to like tease us. Part of the game is like keep us guessing. But will we learn more about Against the Ogre Horde at PulseCon or not? Who knows? And Verg says, I don't think they'll do a character expansion unless they include the hero again with the expansion. Yes, because they're not expecting you to like buy a quest pack that doesn't have a character in it and then you have to go buy something else to supplement it. Yeah, that doesn't quite make sense. It's like they would just put it in there. So if we got a Path of the Wandering Monk expansion, like or a monk quest pack, like so let's say 10 quests and some of them are, to create the monk story, it would be a new monk model, like separate from the hero collection. Just like the knight was separate in his pack. Although the Knight's a little bit different case because it was like a limited release, and so most people never got it. So most people that buy the Knight are going to be buying him when they buy Rise of the Dreadmoon. And okay, there's Jacer's link. Thank you. And Elberg says they only put the Keller's Keep stairs in. They give you a tile again for the stairs. Keller's Keep stairs in. They give you a tile again for the stairs. I think I know what you're talking about. those like long stair tiles, not the spiral staircase. Yeah, it's not a problem for them to repeat. I mean, they've already repeated some plastics and they've repeated some tiles before. That it's just whatever the needs are for that particular expansion. Like the way HeroQuest works, they only expect you to have the game system and then whatever expansion you're buying. So it's not like they're going to sell you an expansion that you need to buy some other expansion to make it complete. I know that with the Frozen Horror and Mage of the Mirror, they say, well, hey, there's only 4 potions here, and 3 of them are for this one hero. So if you want more alchemist shops, you can just use other ones from other quests. That was the original. So that was kind of like a tease because originally they were going to have 4 quest packs, one devoted to each of the 4 heroes, and so you'd want to buy all 4 so that you'd have all the assets. But that was only in terms of like special bonuses, like buying the potions. Like all the monsters that are needed for the Wizard Quest pack were going to be in the Wizard Quest pack box. All the assets for Keller's Keep are inside Keller's Keep in the game system. So you don't necessarily need to buy all of them to enjoy that one. So yes, they will supply anything extra you need. That's why Rise of the Dread Moon came with those elven swordsmen and archers, even though those were already in Mage of the Mirror. Like, why do I need more of those? Because maybe you don't have Mage of the Mirror. So these we're going to give you just enough of these characters so that it still works. But if you happen to have both, you could use the extra ones easily enough. Just like, you could buy Return of the Witch Lord and use those extra undead in your game system to like jazz it up. Like you could do that if you wanted to. You don't have to, but you could. But they gave you just enough skeletons in Return of the Witch Lord so that those quests could have those extra skeletons in one room if they wanted to. Elberg says, it's not a problem. I'm just saying they're not going to make a new expansion with expectations that you need XYZ expansions previously. Yes, agreed. And I think that's the right way to do it because, yes, super fans like us will try to buy everything. Collectors will try to buy everything. But the average player that they're trying to appeal to, the kids and the people who are just getting their toes wet with tabletop fantasy gaming, who aren't necessarily wanting to invest, hundreds and hundreds of dollars in huge collections, Warhammer style collections, or the hobby seems really intimidating to a lot of people. Like Warhammer D&D, it's like I got to buy all these books and I got to buy all these miniatures. That seems like too much. Like that sounds too expensive. That sounds too complicated. I don't want to do that. But HeroQuest seems very inviting because it's like, oh, it's all in the box. It's really easy. Oh, and you want an expansion? Well, you can buy this little box and it's got everything you need. Oh, that's easy. That's manageable. That seems simple. I can do that. Like that's the impression they give. And so, yeah, they want to stick to that rather than this idea that, you gotta buy all these booster packs to, get a competitive army or whatever it is. That's some other game. That's not the way HeroQuest was originally. And I hope they don't go that direction with it either. Elberg says it's a great way to release the game, so there's no worry about having to have all the expansions. Yeah, just what I'm saying. Just play the newest expansion. But this has the downside that we probably won't see the Alchemist deck expanded on in the future unless they release the full deck again. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I would expect if they gave us another Alchemist deck, it would be just a completely different one. And so you could combine them together. But yeah, just because they did it once doesn't mean they're going to do it again and again and again. Just like they were saying.
I would think that they would make different potions. It'd be different reagents and make different potions.
Yeah, but if
the
they
ones
give
that
us,
they did that the first set didn't make.
I'd have no problem. Just like if they want to sell a fancy dice set, they could sell me a deck of cards. I don't mind that. But what they're probably going to do is probably what they're going to do is if they give us another Alchemist deck, it's going to be part of another expansion that has another self-contained system already. Just like they're not going to give us just a piece of something. I mean, I guess when they give us a new hero, they give us just a piece of something. Like this is just an asset that you can use. But still, within that package is everything you need for that hero that isn't already in the game system. So yeah, I guess they wouldn't just sell us an alchemist deck. Probably it would just maybe there would be some other alchemist system in some other pack. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, it would be a
Well, I hope
self-contained. So
if they do try to sell us this alchemist pack, that they're that it comes with 2 alchemist figures.
sure,
That could
yeah,
count as a wizard, but
that'd be
you know what
cool.
I mean? Make it a hero collection that has the alchemist deck in it.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah, it could be exactly so. So you open it up, and instead of the lore card, you've got the hideout, and you've got 2 alchemist figures, and they've each got a staff, and then you've got like a deck, and then a little explanation on the back that tells how to use it. I mean, yeah, they could do anything.
Right, and have them start with like 3 reagents instead of like 3 skills or
Yeah,
or
yeah, they
3
could.
potions
3 potions.
or something.
Yeah, but the point is, if unless they radically change what HeroQuest is, the trend, if anything else that changes is that they want to make it simple, open to modification, and all you really need to own is the game system. Any expansion that you add to it is like a self-contained thing with the game system. So whatever they put in it, it should be pretty much complete. Not to say that you can't sprinkle assets from other things. If you want to throw Polar Warbears into Rise of the Dreadmoon, you can do that. But Rise of the Dreadmoon has everything it needs in the box added onto the game system. So yeah, if they gave
Right.
us another thing, it wouldn't just be. I mean, they could just give us a complete. Like they could release another quest pack that's an adventure in the Dwarven Kingdom, and they could just put the exact alchemist deck in that one too. So you'd have 2 of them. Like they could do that. I doubt they would though. I think if they did do that, it would be like different art at least, or maybe like the potions would be there'd be different potions or different reagents. Like it would be not the exact same
Yeah,
thing
that's what I would hope.
because they would
Yeah,
want
that it
people
cover
who
other potions that
yeah,
aren't crafted.
yeah, they would want it so that if people were trying for the people who are buying everything to give them more of a reason to think it's different and not just the same thing again. Because
Right,
they're
and that
like,
way you
well,
can combine your
I'm
deck.
gonna only buy one. Do I buy the dwarf adventure or do I buy the alchemist adventure? I can't decide. Not everybody's gonna buy everything. So that's why they can't assume, well, we don't have to worry about you having enough mercenaries because we know you're going to buy the pack that has the mercenaries in it. It's like, well, you might not. So we have to make the game still playable without the mercenaries because you might not have those. But anyway, yeah.
I hope we get either runes or like some type of smithing or crafting or something when
Brewmaster,
it comes to dwarfs
Dwarven
or
Alchemist.
brewing.
Yep. Yep. So as much as I want to hear about the origins of Borin and all the other stuff he made besides the armor, at the same time, if they never write that story, that's fine because that just gives me more of the inspiration to do it myself. Because I know there's Warhammer lore about a character named Borin who isn't necessarily the same, but it's there. Just like there's a Morcar who isn't necessarily the Morcar that we know. All right, Jacer. Well, I'm going to call it unless you have a closing thought. I think we went another hour beyond what I thought we would do, but this was a good rant cast. And tomorrow we're going to do.
No, I think we did cover a lot.
Yeah, I honestly wasn't sure because I know that Strange Bus had a family emergency. Again, I wish him the best in his family. I hope everything went okay. I'll have to check in with him later, but I thought I was just going to kind of do a short HeroQuest thing, but I started talking about Disney, and then that led to our nostalgic conversation about old technology and having fun with your kids and everything. And I don't have any kids,
Right,
but
and then old
I,
Disney versus new Disney,
yeah,
but
nieces and nephews, and
right between my daughters and my nephews, and my nieces, like I've gone through. I guess the youngest is 5, and my oldest niece just turned 20. You know what I mean? So,
oh yeah,
like,
wow,
I've had the last 15 years, like, kind of doing a little bit of different things and catching what they kind of liked as
yeah.
they progressed.
You get to experience it with them from a different perspective, or maybe discover things that you didn't wouldn't have seen another way. I mean, yeah, some of the cheesiest, stupidest things that I hated as a kid, I see some kid enjoying it now. I mean, I'm not going to give him a hard time. It's like, good for you. You found something you like. That's great. Tell me what you like about it. You can engage with that. That's cool. So that was a great conversation. And with this HeroQuest stuff, I mean, as much as they tease us, I feel like they've got us on the hook. They can just say anything they want. They could tell us nothing if they wanted, and we would still be hanging on. But I suspect they are going to tell us something substantial at PulseCon, and so I'll probably just be biding my time until that happens. So we've got, just looking at the calendar here, we've got Friday and Saturday. So we're doing Mage of the Mirror on Friday on HeroQuest fans. Saturday we're doing Rise of the Dread Moon. Next week, unless something happens, same plan. And then the following week, the 22nd, that's PulseCon. So that will be early enough in the day that it'll be over, I think, or at least the HeroQuest portion will probably be over by the time we start our game. So the game might be delayed if we spend like the first half hour, depending on what it was, just talking about that, talking about what we
Yeah,
saw.
call it a full power hour because that'll probably be
Yeah,
what it is.
yeah. Because I was thinking, well, timing wise, I mean, we usually start at 2 p.m. So it's not like we're going to be doing a watch party at the same time because I mean, I can't monetize that anyway. Not that monetization is the big deal, but it's not like it's going to be interrupting. It's just going to be people are going to be thinking about that. Kind of like when we did the play test that one day. I'm not going to get into it all, but we spent the first amount of time talking about the news because how could we not? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we'll probably cover that at that time. And who knows, maybe some stuff will come out in the news before that. I mean, I keep checking to see is the companion app updated? Is the PDF posted? Not to say that's going to happen any day. I mean, we just had an update, and I mean, it took 2 months, I think, for the last time for the PDF. So there's a little bit of lag time with that stuff to be expected, but usually it's like on a Friday, all of a sudden we get a bunch of news and we struggle to catch up. So we'll just do what we can. But that'll go on. And I, I'm getting this strong feeling like I should be playing Rogar's Hall with you guys, but I just don't know when we're going to fit it in unless we just take a day off, like from
Or do it on one of the
games.
Thursdays prior to a rant cast.
Ah, yeah, if we're not having the Rantcast, because we don't do it every week. I mean, originally it was
Right.
supposed to be every other.
On one of the off weeks, or
Yeah,
then it
we
was
could.
mentioned too. And if you got any of the
Or,
one shots,
well, Strange Bus and I have been talking
cause
about this, and it's just doing like an on-site collab. Like we were gonna unbox his HeroQuest set. We could play Rogar's Hall. Like we could try to do that live. That'd be interesting.
yeah,
That'd be super interesting.
that is, or one of the solo quests from the books. The
Yeah, yeah.
like the wizard one or the barbarian one.
Running the Gauntlet or Growl of Thunder. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, we could. We definitely could. There's other things we could do, one-offs that would be fun because I've done New Beginnings like multiple times. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it's like I'd kind of like to do something else. And I feel bad. Like I feel like we should be doing COPD. We should be doing Crypto Perpetual Darkness because people are pissed. People are mad that they're not going to get Joe's Dragon in that quest book. And yes, I know there's going to be people that are just going to find a scan online. It's like, fine, you're not going to sell it to me. I'm going to pirate it because I'm not going to spend 500 bucks on eBay to get it. It's like, okay, that's just what happened. But I own it, and I could play it with you guys to show people what it's like, let them experience it. I mean, anybody could do this, but I mean, we have that ability. So that's 10 quests, though. That's more of an investment than just a one-off. So we'll see. But yes,
Yeah.
originally the Rantcast was going to be
That
every
you could
other
even do
Thursday.
that after Rise or Mage of the Mirror too, if you jump into another campaign or.
Yeah, yeah, if we've got time. I don't mind jumping around, like I said, like I've demonstrated, and I want to bring, I want to bring Space Crusade back, but right now it's just it's hard to find Space Crusade players, and it's much easier to find HeroQuest players. So we'll do what we do. But yeah, I don't want anybody to be feeling like, oh, we're neglecting HeroQuest. You don't get your HeroQuest fix every week. We do what we can to bring that. And originally, yes, the Rantcast was going to be every other week, but Strange Bus gets it into his head that we got to do it every week. And I would like to do that too. It's just that time and energy isn't there. Both of us have our own schedules and our own stuff going on, so it's really, really hard to get it going. But when we
Right.
get it,
Plus it's live and not pre-taped, so you
yeah,
can't.
oh
It's
yeah,
hard to change days, and
exactly. Yeah,
it's
when
just
we
where
get
it
a,
works.
but once you get a good rant going, it's hard to stop. Like I find myself wanting to argue about stuff for like another hour, but I'm tired. I'm losing my voice. We've pretty much said what we need to say for now, and we can pick it up next time. So
Yeah, I'm good. It's 2 a.m. and I got to be up and at work in less than 5 hours.
dang. Okay. Well, Jacer, the man, the myth, the legend. Thanks for joining us on the
No problem.
Rantcast. Yeah. All right. So let's bring up Karl Casey and to play us out. You guys have a great night, and maybe we'll catch some of you tomorrow on HeroQuest fans.